The hero thinks that he cannot become stronger. He has no talent, luck or money. A knight in armor with a sword engulfed in flames and a girl with a scepter with a blue magic ball are surrounded by magic circles. In a slot machine, 3 sevens are collected in a row. A gray-haired man wearing a crown raises a scepter. Around him are mountains of gold, expensive armor, weapons, and jewelry. Because the main character is the simplest, there is only one crumpled bill in his hand, although even a little worse than an ordinary person. When mighty heroes bask in the glory, he stands in the shadows. He's wearing a suit glove and holding the bill tightly, because his teacher gave him one instruction. A guy with black hair and blue eyes smiles enthusiastically. He is wearing armor and a red cloak. He knows that to win you don't have to be stronger than your opponent, be it hordes of ferocious toothy dragons or octopus-like sea monsters that surround the main character. If he cannot become stronger, he will make his opponents weaker. Many strong monsters with horns and sharp teeth are approaching him. The guy activates magic seals. The system shows that the applied mortality effect reduces the enemy's defense and defensive abilities. The applied exhaustion effect gradually reduces the enemy's health and mana level. The triangular-jawed monster, the axe-eared monster, and the bull-headed monster have their stat values reduced. The lizard monster, wolf monster, and bat monster also become weaker. The main character's ability also affects the monster Cyclops and the monster with the red lion's mane that are closest to each other. The green beam hits all creatures on both sides of it. The muscular goblin swings his war hammer, attacking from behind. The main character notices movement. The goblin hits the ground and it cracks. The main character skillfully dodges weapons. He grabs the war hammer with his hand. He then uses the ability to restore balance. The plus and minus scales are tipped towards the plus side. The contempt of the strong ability increases the damage dealt to enemies of a higher level. The damage received from them, on the contrary, is reduced. The main character hits the enemy's warhammer with his ability. His red cloak flutters. He makes a lightning-fast swing with his spear. Then, he roundhouse hits the goblin. The goblin oozes blood from its mouth and flies off to the side. The main character pushes off the ground with his foot. He jumps onto the spear stuck into the monster's chest with his feet. The guy with his hair disheveled from the fight smiles triumphantly. Monsters in armor and with a snake tongue approach the hero. He is preparing for a new deadly attack. He remembers an old man with a beard. The old man raised his finger and told him to remember one thing. You need to make your enemies weaker. The main character strikes again. His teacher said that he needed to destroy them with one blow, and that he won't have a second try. The main character quickly turns around. He hits the monster approaching from behind with his weapon. He remembers that the main thing is to kill the enemy the first time. Standing on one spear, with the other he chops all attackers in a circle. He remembers the old man's words. A powerful blow thunders on the battle scene. The main character's magic reduces the abilities of the monsters around him and gives him strength. The hero looks at his enemies with enthusiasm. This is because he is a debuff master. Brave New World, or DNV for short. It's the biggest open-world virtual reality MMORPG in gaming history. The main character looks at the view opening before him from an elevated position. In front of him is a majestic palace, and in the sky there are several flying islands. There is a huge and varied world map here. Lively cities filled with characters of different races. 30 million kilometers of complete freedom, be it floating islands, active volcanoes, or snow-capped forests. There are over 2 billion NPCs in the world, virtually limitless content, fully recreated touch systems and graphics. A smiling guy in a suit holds a spear with a crystal tip. The wind lifts leaves around him. DNV is not just a game, but a whole world. However, the main character is not particularly interested in such things. He has a peaceful expression on his face. The main reason he started playing is money. In front of the group of players lies a whole mountain of treasure chests and weapons. A red-haired guy with freckles runs up to the main character. The hero thinks that it is amazing that you can make money just by playing games. He remembers noticing a poster of the game on the street and stopping in front of it. The main character started playing a year ago and received the Mega Elementalist class. Several spell books hang in the air, and streams of magic swirl around the main character. He thinks that constant pumping has paid off. The main character remembers how he and his team fought a giant stone monster. He became the master of the Beamer Guild, consisting of 200 people. Then he remembers how he got together with his guildmates. He was wearing a high-necked cloak and had a guild flag hanging on the wall. The main character opens a chest of gold. He thinks this will last for a while. A red-haired guy with freckles asks with admiration how much cash the main character will receive. He wonders how he even managed to find such a cool dungeon. Satisfied with himself, the main character smiles patronizingly. He says there is one way. Despite the fact that he has neither a good education nor a family, he has a certain predisposition to games. Therefore, no one will forbid him to survive on this. The main character asks if everyone is free, and then he offers to treat the team members gathered around him. The guy with red hair is pleasantly surprised. The guy with the bun and the armor says that this is what he expected from their master. The main character playfully winks at the red-haired guy. He leans his elbow on his shoulder. He thinks that only in this game can he live. Rain and fog fall on the forest at the foot of the mountains. Two men with weapons are running along a washed-out clay road, catching up with the main character. Out of breath from running, the unarmed hero desperately runs away. The pursuers threateningly demand that he stop. They stop, breathing heavily. The stalker in the bandana complains that he can't see a thing because of the rain. The other responds that the hero was literally just in front of them. The man with the sword suggests that the main character went in this direction. The second adds that in any case he has nowhere to run. Sooner or later they will catch up with him. At this time, the main character with a tense expression on his face is hiding behind a tree. He thinks to himself that these two are creatures from Genesis. The Genesis Guild is one of the greatest guilds in DNM and has great influence. 4 dangerous-looking members stand against the backdrop of the guild symbol with golden wings. He mentions that it was these people who destroyed the Beamer Guild, of which the main character was a member. The main character was kneeling in front of a burning castle in a scorched cloak. Hiding behind a tree, the main character thinks that despite the size of the guild, he did not expect such a significant difference in strength. He didn't even have time to do anything before they were finished. A system warning appears that the hero has been playing Brave New World for 47 hours, and the fact that excessive passion for the game can harm his health and interfere with normal life. The main character with a stained cheek checks the holographic notification. He thinks that he has absolutely nowhere to go. If he leaves the game, a trashy, moldy basement room and an old VR capsule will await him. Hundreds of millions of credits and a bunch of precious items were collected to confront Genesis, such as a wooden staff with a shining blue stone. However, everything was stolen by the enemy thanks to the betrayal of an ally. The main character sees what is left in his inventory. These are 3 pieces of beef jerky, a torn cloak, 2 pieces of a torn treasure map, and a dull magic staff. He plops down doomedly on the ground under the tree. The hero sighs and wonders if this is the end. He bites his lip out of resentment. He asks himself why nothing is working out for him. His hands tremble and his nails scratch the damp earth. He indignantly asks if he really tried so hard only to lose everything. The main character bursts into tears and asks why he loses all the time. An old man with long gray hair appears in front of him. He says it's because the main character is weak. The guy sitting near the tree shudders. The old man with red eyes says that in every world there is a law of the jungle. He says it goes without saying that the strong will oppress the weak. He asks why the hero is lamenting. The main character is surprised that an old man appeared in front of him. He wonders how long he's been standing here. The old man with the half bun says that it's a pity to look like this at a poor guy who complains about the world. The main character looks at him with indignation. He thinks to himself, who else is a beggar here? He gets up and puts his hands in his pockets. The main character tells the old man to go where he is going, and that he's not in the mood for jokes. The old man grumbles, asking how the guy dares to talk to elders like that. Suddenly a sound reaches the hero's ears. He shouts excitedly that there is something behind the old man. A man with a sword tries to attack the old man from behind. A loud bang is heard in the forest. The stalker in the bandana says that the attacking partner is greedy, because they agreed to go together. The second pursuer says it's because he's too slow. The man in the bandana asks if the main character really hasn't logged out. The main character, in a squatting position, shields the old man from blows. His clothes are dirty and he has scratches and bruises on his face and arm. The man with the sword replies that the main character, apparently, has no better real life, and also debts of 100 million. The second stalker agrees that it's a nightmare. The main character rubs his bruised wrist and squints in pain. He remembers that he doesn't even have any weapons. He thinks he's finished. The hero turns to the old man and says that it is very dangerous here. He recommends that he flee this place. The old man asks why in surprise. The main character gets angry and says that now is not the time for nonsense. The man in the bandana asks who this old man is. He assumes that the old man is an NPC. The man with the sword mockingly remarks that the main character is a worm if he cares about the NPC. A red-haired guy with freckles puts his hand on the shoulder of a man in a bandana. He says that the main character has such a character, that he pretends to be kind and thinks it's cool. The main character recognizes the person who has approached. He shouts that Kim Jin-woo is a traitor. The red-haired guy spreads his arms to the side. He laughs and asks if those words are too cruel. He smiles coldly and arrogantly. He says he's just pursuing a better opportunity. The main character offendedly asks how he could do this. After all, he considered him family. The red-haired guy is surprised that he considers them family after everything. He says that if the hero really thought so, he would not have confronted Genesis, that he sent his comrades to certain death only because he did not want to lose the guild. The main character hesitantly answers that this is not so. He clenches his fists, stunned by these words. The red-haired guy activates the magic of his staff. Golden rays radiate from the gun. He laughs because the main character called them family. He asks if the hero didn't know that only those whose business prospers become a family. He steps forward, raises the staff with the red stone above him and uses magic. The main character recognizes his staff. It was the same, only with a blue stone. He angrily declares that this is the man who stole his weapon. The red-haired guy replies that in the hands of the main character it was useless anyway, that he shouldn't worry because he uses these weapons wisely. A large fireball forms on top of the magical staff. The red-haired guy offers to test the power of his weapon. The fireball and the flashes from it are directed towards the main character. A large explosion occurs at the place where the hero stood. The swordsman says the guy with the freckles is crazy, since he and the main character ate from the same table. The guy with the staff explains that this is why he must destroy it, so that he wouldn't be able to get back on his feet. The guy with freckles widens his eyes in surprise when someone calls them brats. The old man says that no matter how hard he falls, he cannot stick a knife into the back of his benefactor. The main character is lying on the ground, and the old man stands in front of him, activating strong magic. The old man says that trash like the guy with freckles can't even be recycled. The main character calls out to the old man in surprise. The guy with the staff asks who this old man is and how he repelled his attack. The old man says that this cannot be called an attack. He concentrates blue magic into his fist. He offers to show how to do it. The old man hits his opponents with a powerful stream of wind. Stones and enemies fly in all directions. The main character covers his face from the wind. He wonders what it was. He tries to open his eyes despite the flow of wind. The amount of damage from the old man's blow reaches a maximum value of 999,999,999,999. Behind the old man, the main character is shocked by what happened. He activates the Rune of Insight. The system displays a description of the character Old Man by the Road. The main character learns that according to the classification of creatures, this old man belongs to the NPC, and his race is human. The old man's eyes light up from the power of his magic. The system displays information that the character is level 999. The main character opens his mouth in surprise. He exclaims that this cannot be, that his level cannot be 999. An old man with a stern face and red eyes turns to the hero. The system confirms that the old man by the road is indeed a level 999 NPC. The gray-haired old man says that he has been watching the main character for a long time. He reproaches the hero for having no talent, no money, and not even an ounce of luck. The old man's words sting him. The hero asks why the old man suddenly decided to bombard him with facts, and yet the old man really enjoyed watching the main character struggle desperately. He recalls how on a hill there was a group of armed men with banners and weapons, and the main character stood alone in the valley with a spear. It was stained with blood and dirt, but his eyes glowed with a stubborn blue light. A holographic system notification appears in front of the hero. The system offers an epic quest to establish a connection between teacher and student. The reward for completion is unknown for now. According to the rules, the hero must respectfully bow to the old man by the road. But this must be done carefully, because the old man can beat the guy to death. The main character looks at the message in amazement. He is surprised that such a simple task is called an epic quest. Although the last phrase confuses him a little. He doesn't know what will happen, but he thinks that he won't get such a chance again. He has no reason to refuse. The hero takes a kneeling position and asks the old man to accept him as his student. The system announces that the guy has completed this quest. A notification appears that the main character has become a student of Deus. Then about the fact that he successfully made the transition. His class was changed from Mage Elementalist to Apprentice. The main character, sitting on his knees, incomprehensibly asks about the student's class. The old man standing in front of him explains that this means that he has become a disciple of the Great One. And now the old man will reveal to him the secret of invincibility. The old man extends his hand to the guy. The main character thinks for a second about what kind of invincibility we are talking about. Then he purses his lips tightly, and he shakes the old man's hand, calling him teacher. Large magic circles with symbols are formed around the teacher and student. Magic envelops the main character in pink light. He is stunned to see teleportation magic being used. There is a flash of bright light in the forest, and the heroes disappear. Center of Mount Kunlun. The pink beam hits one of the gentle mountain ledges. The main character in holy clothes rests his palm on the ground and tries to catch his breath. He thinks that even high-ranking players cannot always use teleportation magic. Leaning his hands on the ground, he tries to understand where they are. Snowflakes are falling around. The old man approaches a dark cave. The hero wonders if this old man is really an NPC. The old man offers to follow him to get to the place where he will teach the guy. The main character shudders and agrees with the teacher. As he enters the cave, he looks ahead in shock. He exclaims in surprise that the lake is very clean. A shining azure lake stretches out in front of them. The old man says that this is the lake of liberation. It will help the hero cleanse himself. The protagonist incredulously asks what exactly is meant by purification. Deus says he's not going to mess with the guy. He wants to take a crash course with him in 99 days. Lake of Liberation will help them with this. The reflection of the main character appears on the smooth surface of the lake. He asks what's the point of this. The old man comes up and replies that the guy needs to take his words literally. He says that a new vessel must be filled with new contents. He adds that the hero is also too dirty. Deus kicks the guy in the back. From the kick, the main character falls into the azure lake. The old man tells him to wash himself. The splash of water causes splashes to fly. The main character releases bubbles into the water. He covers his mouth and nose with his hand, thinking that he is going to die. Suddenly he realizes that he can breathe. The main character stops panicking. He peers into the water column surrounding him. A notification appears saying that the Lake of Liberation will cleanse it. Then a warning flashes to warn the hero to prepare for incredible pain. The timer is set to 60 minutes. Bubbles burst out of the main character's mouth in surprise. When the timer starts, it shows that there are 59 minutes and 59 seconds left. The main character is struck by electrical magic. He screams, taking water into his mouth. An old man stands in front of a lake with his hands folded behind his back. Flashes of blue magic are visible underwater, and screams can be heard from there. Deus says that, judging by the screams, the water treatments are really refreshing. The main character is pierced by painful impulses. He feels like every cell of his body is on fire. With VR glasses on his face, the main character twitches in pain in a gaming chair. He is surprised that the system allows for this level of pain. With a trembling hand, he reaches for the exit button. His finger practically touches the holographic button. The main character recalls the episodes with the burned-down guild building and his escape from his pursuers. And then he remembers covering the little girl's eyes and ears while a man beat a woman in the next room. He remembers walking up the stairs with a block of bricks on his back and wearing a hard hat. The main character grits his teeth in the game. The timer changes from 59, 52 to 59, 51. The main character frowns with tension as the flow of magic continues to hit him. He thinks he can't escape. The timer shows that the remaining time is 59, 50. Bubbles float to the surface from the dark water. The timer shows that there are only 2 seconds left. Circles spread out on the surface of the azure lake, and the water bubbles. At this point, there is 1 second left on the timer. The main character suddenly emerges, spitting out water. He crawls to the ground, clinging to the shore with trembling hands. He has a hard time saying that he survived. The main character falls on his back and laughs. He is glad that he succeeded. A blue screen appears in front of his face. The notification states that the cleanup is complete, and that the player character is reset. Information about the main character's character changes. Han Taesung's level decreases from 201 to 1. According to the character classification, he becomes an adventurer. The player's class changes to student. The main character has a shocked expression on his face. He screams loudly in frustration. Eyes bulging, Han Taesung points at the screen. He trembles and notes with regret that his level has dropped. The teacher says happily that the cleansing was successful. Han Taesung's face darkened with disappointment. The main character smiles nervously. He asks what to do now. After all, his level returned to the very beginning. A light cloth falls on the main character's head. The teacher says that just an hour ago he was just trash. Without removing the cloth from his head, Han Taesung clarifies that an hour ago was the moment they met. The old man says that his level of strength, stamina and mana were all wrong. The teacher asks what the guy hoped for with such a disproportionate level of characteristics. Han Taesung dries his wet hair with a towel. He wonders if his level reset because he was leveling up incorrectly. The teacher says that he is going to disassemble him from head to toe, and then bring out the best in everything. The dark silhouette of Han Taesung stands against a background of blue flash with cosmic content. The teacher says that when other players receive 1 unit of mana, Han Ti-sung will receive 1.2. An unremarkable NPC stands against a background of arrows and +1. The rejoicing Han Ti-sung has more arrows and +1.2. Then the main character realizes that when everyone else at level 100 receives 100 mana, Han Ti-sung will receive 120. Creeping plants grow along the walls of the cave. The main character thanks the teacher. He kneels before him. The teacher laughs and says that this way Han Ti-sung will soon wipe out the holes in his knees. Deus turns away and steps away from the student. He says that it is too early for him to rejoice. Deus says that the main character has a long way to go before becoming the best among everyone. The teacher adds that in the next 99 days the main character will have to repeat the same actions 100 times. Han Ti-sung immediately states that he can do it, that if he manages to become stronger, he will never give up. His eyes glow with enthusiasm. Deus is silent for a while, and then the old man breaks into a smile. He expresses the hope that the student's attitude will not change. The teacher leaves in the direction of the exit from the cave. Han Ti-sung looks after him. A system window pops up with a new quest. The beginning of true learning is to endure the training of Deus. The transformation progress rate changes from 0% to 1%. At the same time in the USA, the sun's rays are reflected in a tall glass skyscraper with the inscription Hives and the honeycomb emblem. This is the headquarters of the Hive Company. In a special section of the hexagon there is a large holographic screen and several tables with control panels in front of it. Employees communicate with each other. The bespectacled man states in surprise that the 007 epic code has been activated. The 3 employees turn around and open their mouths in surprise. The staff asks if Deus really accepted the student and who he is. Someone suggests that the student was a famous pro player. Employees look over the shoulder of a bespectacled man holding his hands above a glowing panel. A man with glasses with a discreet smile says that it seems it was someone ordinary. A man in expensive shoes enters into a dialogue, approaching the employees from behind. He is surprised that an ordinary player has become a student. The employees turn at his voice. They greet the head of the department by first calling him vice chairman. A man with blonde hair and glasses orders the picture to be enlarged. This man is the vice chairman of the Hive Company and the head of the Hexen department, whose surname is Oppenheimer. Subordinates carry out his orders. A photo of the main character and his parameters appear on the blue screen. The man with blonde hair says that he is indeed the most ordinary user from Korea. He says Han Ti-sung's name. He wonders how long the main character will last. The holographic screen shows a close-up portrait of Han Ti-sung. Han Ti-sung, wearing a gray sweatshirt and with black eyes, notices the glowing Hives poster. He remembers that he wanted to escape from the terrible reality. That's why I found myself in a brave new world. A hero in a cloak stands in front of a sparkling knight's castle. However, in his opinion, this place was not much different from real life. The main character is kneeling in front of a burning knight's castle. In a moment of despair, he thought that reality had nothing to do with it, that he himself is just a loser. The main character looks down lostly. Smoke swirls around him and ash flies, but suddenly a light appears from above. Han Ti-sung looks up in surprise. At this moment of despair, he met a teacher. The old man with a look full of hidden strength extends his hand to the hero. With hope, Han Ti-sung began training hard to become invincible. He was immersed in water with an electric current. He endured the teacher sticking dozens of needles into him. He tried to hit the teacher with a wooden stick and climbed up the rocks. 3 months pass like this. A blizzard is raging in the mountains, and near the cliff there is a small house. An old man with a mustache takes a sip from a small glass. He drains his glass and exhales contentedly. Deus says he didn't think the day would come when a student would pour him a drink. He offers Han Ti-sung a treat too. Han Ti-sung smiles and thanks him. The teacher says that tomorrow will be the last 99th day. He asks if the disciple has already started to miss Mount Kunlun. Holding the shot glass in his hand, Han Ti-sung smiles nervously. He asks what the teacher is talking about. He replies that he will never miss the place where he almost died due to grueling training. Deus clicks his tongue and says that the hero only trained for 3 months. Moreover, the teacher gave Han Ti-sung the day off. At his age, Deus studied without sleep at all. The main character remembers that on his day off he worked in real life to cover part of the debt. Wearing a builder's uniform, he sweated and carried heavy bags of cement. The foreman shouted that they would continue after lunch. Remembering this, the main character drinks a shot glass with tears in his eyes. There is a light on in a brick house with a wooden roof. Outside, the wind is blowing and snow is falling. Han Ti-sung remembers that he wanted to ask something. He asks if the teacher was like him. Deus stops drinking and hums thoughtfully. He puts the glass on the table. The teacher says that, of course, he had similar times in his search for strength, but he wasn't that kind of trash. The main character smiles, hiding his irritation. He complains to himself that the teacher could not do without it. The main character sits at a long table with food opposite an old man. Deus says that 500 years ago there were 8 strongest people on the continent. 8 menacing silhouettes stand in a line one after another. The teacher admits that among them he was the weakest. A young teacher with a long black ponytail stands with his back, clenching his fist. Deus says that he had an overwhelming desire to destroy them all. However, they were much stronger than him. Young Deus clenches his fist so hard that his nails dig into his skin until they bleed. The teacher says that this made him go to Mount Kunlun. There he began to train hard. As a result, he managed to gain powerful strength. Among the snow-capped mountains, magic rages, enveloping a gray-haired old man in shabby clothes. Deus admits that even so he still could not defeat those 7. Sweat appears on Han Ti-sun's face in fear. He asks if they were really that strong. However, the teacher replies that during the 500 years that Deus spent on the mountain, they all died of old age. Han Ti-sun opens his mouth in confusion. At first he is silent, and then clarifies what he meant. The teacher explains that during training he completely forgot about time. An old man with flowing gray hair stands in the middle of the street. He thinks that this is where his house should have been. The mother tells the child with the ice cream that he will become the same if he does not study. A man passing by thinks that the old man is a tramp. The old man says that the enlightenment he gained during cultivation became useless as a result. Han Ti-sun calls out to the teacher sympathetically. Deus places the book in front of the student. He tells him to watch it. Han Ti-sun asks what it is. Deus asks if the hero knows what the word invincible means. The hero takes the book and says that this is the one with whom no one can compare in strength. Deus gets up from the table and says that this is not true, that the invincible is the one who never loses using any force. Han Ti-sun asks if winning isn't about being stronger than your opponent. The old man says that you don't have to have a physical advantage to win. He tells the student holding the book that he needs to make the strong weaker. Deus says that this is the enlightenment he has achieved. He adds that Debuff mastery has a beginning and an end. A book with pixels opens in front of the main character. The notification says that the hero has completed the quest for true learning. Han Ti-sun passes Deus training 100%. He successfully makes the transition. His class has been changed from apprentice to Debuff master. Streams of magic surround the main character. He looks at his hand with interest. Han Ti-sun is amazed by his new Debuff master class. The system reports that the main character's nickname has been changed from Ti-sun to Jackfried. Seeing this, Ti-sun asks who Jackfried is. Deus says that Han Ti-sun is the one and only student of the Great One, and in this case, he needs a suitable name. From now on he is Jackfried. The main character raises his eyebrows in disappointment. He thinks about the fact that in DNM you cannot change your name. However, the system changes the rules at its own discretion. Nevertheless, the main character feels as if he was born again. He clenches his fist confidently. Now with this power he can defeat even Genesis. Suddenly the teacher attracts his attention. Since Han Ti-sun became his student, he must do something. Ti-sun asks what is this. The old man raises his finger instructively. He says that the 7 he spoke of earlier must have continued their lineage before they died. A new epic quest appears. It consists of fulfilling the teacher's request and defeating the descendants of the 7 strongest people who ruled the continent 500 years ago. Progress is 0%, and the number of defeated descendants is 0 of 7. The list includes the descendant of the thunder god Vajra, the descendant of the sword master Murcielago, and the descendant of the great archmage Sigart, and also the descendant of the blood demon Berserker, the descendant of the king of justice Mogris, the descendant of the shooting master Von Force, and the descendant of the despot King Brow. Deus says that the main character's task is to defeat the descendants using his teachings. Han Ti-sun slams his fist into his palm and smiles. After all, no matter who his opponent is, he will defeat everyone. He will prove that his training was not in vain. Deus looks with sly red eyes and says that he likes the student's aspiration. He snaps his fingers and pink sparks appear out of nowhere. He says Han Ti-sun's training is over, and that now he must take the place of Deus and become great. Magic rages around the main character, ruffling his hair and clothes. The eyes of the main character shine with determination. He tells the teacher that he is leaving. A ray of magic soars into the sky, and a pink light burns in the windows of the house. The last traces of magic dissipate near the teacher. Deus chuckles in thought. He says that he thought they would have another drink together. There are chopsticks on the table and a full stack of them. In the west of the continent, the kingdom of Burman, the bright sun illuminates a high castle in the mountains. The main character wanders along a forest path. He notices that Deus has thrown him far. He thinks it might be even better. After all, he only has level 1, and he doesn't want to encounter Genesis members at all. Han Ti-sun approaches a log lying on the grass. He believes that it would be better to climb unhindered to at least level 100. Han Ti-sun sits on a log and opens several holographic windows. He studies information about the class. The system reveals that the Debuff Master class is hidden. He is a melee damage dealer, support and nuker. Using various debuffs, he makes the enemy weaker. The main weapon and armor are heavy. Standard equipment includes blunt weapon proficiency, shield proficiency, sword proficiency, spear proficiency, arm guard proficiency, and heavy armor proficiency. The hero has all of them at level 1. Debuff Master skills include Exhaustion, Mortality, and level 1 Slam, as well as the inaccessible skills of Speed Control, Contempt for the Strong, and Exhaustion. Han Ti-sun looks thoughtfully at the system message. He says that a powerful blow is an active skill, and mortality and exhaustion, apparently, are debuffs. The system window shows that mortality allows you to create a circular field centered on the caster. It destroys the enemy's armor and reduces the effect of defensive skills. The area of the field increases as skill increases. The system window shows that exhaustion allows you to create a circular field that drains the enemy. It reduces his health and mana. The area of the field increases as skill increases. This is a fixed level type that increases in proportion to the amount of mana the caster has. Therefore, the skill is not affected by abilities related to defense and anti-magic. The main character gags and bulges his eyes in surprise. He is shocked that not only defense, but also anti-magic will not affect the debuff. The hero jumps up from the log and screams. He admires fixed damage, which depends on the amount of mana. Han Ti-sun can't wait to try everything out. Ti-sun is determined to attack someone. He sucks in air through his nostrils as if trying to pick up a trail. He wonders if there are NPCs nearby. The white animal behind bars screams that it doesn't want to die. A tiger with a cage in its teeth is rushing towards the main character at full speed. The main character turns around in surprise, and he sees a tiger carrying a hamster in a cage. A hamster with tears in his eyes begs a man to save him. An urgent hidden quest appears. The hero needs to save the Great Spirit. It is necessary to defeat the mutated tiger. The progress bar shows 0 of 1 tigers defeated and 0% rescue completed. The reward for the quest is unknown. Han Ti-sun reads the terms of the hidden quest. He wonders if this hamster is really a great spirit. However, he notices that the monster is too high level for the starting location. According to the system, the mutated tiger is level 25. The tiger was mutated by an unidentified energy. Ti-sun thinks there is nothing to do. He notices a stick resembling a club lying in the grass. Ti-sun picks her up from the ground, and magical symbols form around her. The main character remembers what the teacher said. It applies mortality and exhaustion debuffs in the form of downward pointing arrows. Mortality reduces the enemy's defense and defensive abilities, and exhaustion gradually reduces the enemy's health and mana level. The magic circle captures the tiger with spikes. The main character takes a fighting stance with a baton. The tiger stops, and the hamster in the cage complains that his strength is leaving him. Han Ti-sun remembers Deus saying that it doesn't matter how strong the opponent is. He hits the tiger in the face and the cage flies out of his teeth. The main character smiles triumphantly and says that the main thing is to make the enemy weaker. The mutant saber-toothed tiger lets out a terrifying roar and swings its claws. Han Ti-sun dodges and runs up from the side. He swings his club and delivers powerful blows to the creature's neck and side. The clawed paw aims at the hero's head. Han Ti-sun quickly escapes from the attack, breaking himself with his legs and hand. A hamster in a closed cage thinks that this is incredible. It is incredible that a level 1 person desperately rushed into battle with Mutant 25, and that they are fighting on equal terms. The main character rains blows on the tiger's body, bouncing away from its attacks. The hamster screams at the top of his lungs for the man to win and save him. Han Ti-sun makes an irritated face and is indignant that this hamster is too noisy. He thinks that you can't tell right away that the animal is trying to cheer him up. The main character is thinking hard. There is an abrasion on his face and his clothes are slightly torn on his shoulder. Han Ti-sun notices that even after 10 hits, the tiger still has half his health. He believes that even with debuffs, the difference in levels cannot be undone. An angry tiger with spikes and a lizard tail rushes furiously towards the main character, eyes flashing. Han Ti-sun clutches a cracked baton. His strength and mana are already at their limit. The weapon will also break soon. Han Ti-sun believes that if he doesn't destroy the tiger with the next blow, he's finished. The hand tightly clasps and squeezes its own wrist. The club is filled with magical power. The main character takes a fighting stance. When used, the power strike skill inflicts the strongest blow possible on the enemy. The tiger and the main character are preparing to attack. The next moment, the tiger disappears from the place. He jumps at the main character with a roar. Han Ti-sun dodges the claws right next to his face, and then he hits the tiger's face with the end of the club. From a powerful blow, the tiger flies to the side, and chips fly around. The tiger falls head first on the ground, missing half of its teeth. The system shows many notifications about level up. The main character has reached level 15. Han Ti-sun places the piece of baton on his shoulder. He says he doesn't know if reaching level 15 all at once is worth it. After all, while fighting, he was on the verge of death every time. A defeated tiger with broken teeth and claws gives up the ghost. Han Ti-sun notes that he defeated someone he couldn't before. This is what a master of debuffs means. The hamster screams that it's time for the person to stop standing like a pillar, and we need to free him as soon as possible. The main character gives him a dissatisfied look. He wonders if he should hit him. When the hamster is no longer in the cage, he sighs happily. The hamster briefly thanks the man. Han Ti-sun notes disapprovingly that the hamster is not very generous with gratitude. Hamster smugly says that he wanted to thank the hero, but thought that he would be lonely on the journey, and he generously offers his company. He doesn't have time to finish when Han Ti-sun says he'll make do. Han Ti-sun opens the system window and touches the screen. The hamster opens his mouth in amazement. He begins to sob and tug at the hero's trouser leg. He admits that he has lost his memory and therefore now he has no strength. He begs to be taken with him. Han Ti-sun makes a sour face and calls the hamster clingy. He says he's not interested in pets. Suddenly he notices a pop-up window. It says that the hero has completed a hidden quest to save the Great Spirit. Defeated tigers 1 of 1. Saving the Great Spirit is 100% complete. The reward is a contract with the Great Spirit of the forest. The hero is indignant that this beast was his reward. He is very unhappy about this, and he notices that this hamster is the Great Spirit of the forest. He had heard that Great Spirits were similar in strength to the Spirit King. Han Ti-sun studies the screen carefully. He thinks that even if this hamster is useless now, he can regain his strength later. The hamster is still crying, clinging to the main character's pant leg. Han Ti-sun says okay. He agrees to make an agreement. He says the hamster has a lousy mouth, but he's pretty cute. The spirit of the forest smiles, making big shining eyes. He asks if this is true. The main character offers to do what the hamster wants. A golden glowing symbol appears on Han Ti-sun's hand, and chains curl around her. The ends of the chains are wrapped around the spirit of the forest. A luminous ball appears above the animal's head. He thinks it's a pleasant feeling. The system reports that the main character has successfully concluded a contract with the spirit. The card of the Great Spirit of the forest has his name written on it. This is Prometheus Cactus Hydra Leviathan Blessed Zacharias Anabolica Gallardo. The spirit level is 15, and it corresponds to the player's level. He belongs to the Divine Beast race and the Trickster class. These titles include those of Flattering Tyrant, Forest Protector, Forest Demon, Forest Bully, Forest Playboy. Skills are currently unavailable. Han Ti-sun purses his lower lip and thoughtfully scratches his chin with his finger. He thinks that since the level of the spirit depends on the level of the player directly, then he will become stronger if Han Ti-sun is leveled up. He notices the Forest Playboy title. Hamster clears his throat and says that since they have concluded a contract, he wants to introduce himself properly. He says his name is Prometheus Cactus Hydra Leviathan, but he doesn't have time to finish when the main character says that the name is too long. The system notification suggests giving a new name to the spirit of the forest with which he has entered into a contract. Han Ti-sun smiles slyly and writes the new name with his finger. He says that now the spirit will be called Coma. Hearing this, the spirit of the forest squeaks in alarm. The forest spirit pouts, crossing his arms over his chest. He sits on the hero's shoulder with a dissatisfied face. Han Ti-sun asks if he could make his face simpler. Hamster is outraged, asking how Han Ti-sun could call him that name. He doesn't understand the complaint, because in his opinion it sounds cute. The hamster is indignant that this name does not suit the Great Spirit. Han Ti-sun says that he can no longer change him, so the spirit needs to be humbled. He asks why this Great Spirit was locked in a cage. The spirit of the forest squints and says that he himself doesn't know. When he woke up, he was already locked in a cage. He can't remember anything. He only remembers his name and which forest he belongs to. Han Ti-sun concludes that something strange happened to the spirit. The hamster pulls the main character's cheek. He says that his Ti-sun must help him get his memories back. The main character stops on the road and asks him to take his time. He looks at the mountainous landscape and settlement in front of him. Han Ti-sung says that their main goal now is to become stronger. There is a house on a stone-paved road. A man with a mustache greets a wanderer. The system suggests that a character named Jorik is a member of the mercenary guild, and the fact that he is an NPC. Jorik asks what brought the main character to them. Han Ti-sung says he wants to get a mercenary license. He needs it for pumping. The man behind the counter replies that there are prerequisites for obtaining a license. Han Ti-sung stands on a patterned rug with a hamster on his shoulder. The man adds that even if he were great, he would still have to prove he has minimal competence. He says that once upon a time the rabbits in Burman territory mutated. But before he can finish, Han Ti-sung puts down the broken tiger claw. He asks if this would do. The man with the mustache grunts and suddenly realizes that it is the claw of a mutated tiger. The system reveals that due to its strength and durability, the mutated tiger's claw is used as a material for making low-grade weapons. Han Ti-sung proudly states that he caught it on the way here. He asks if this isn't a better way to prove his competence than killing a rabbit or a squirrel. The man with the mustache says that the hero is right, but he finds it hard to believe that Han Ti-sung defeated the beast alone. The man claims that this is impossible. Han Ti-sung was taken aback and opened his mouth slightly. The man with the mustache decides that this is enough checking. He puts his hand in his bosom. Ti-sung didn't think it would work out. On the man's hand is a dark green pocket watch with a black and gold sign. He hands the item to Ti-sung and says it's a mercenary guild license. The main character takes the item and thanks the man. The man with the mustache asks if the hero has time to listen to the story. Han Ti-sung asks what story they are talking about. The man with the mustache says that a lot of mutants have divorced recently. He says that the other day they attacked a neighboring ranch. On the street next to Han Ti-sung and the man, gloomy people are walking. The boy clings to his mother's skirt. A man with a mustache states that the villagers are in fear. Ti-sung looks in that direction and asks if monsters are starting to appear in the village more often. The man with the mustache confirms that this is true. He adds that the mutated tiger that the main character killed has been here a couple of times. However, the mutated tiger was not alone in terrorizing them. Also, wolves and a bull, who have become monsters, pose a threat to the inhabitants. Fanged and horned animals sparkle with red eyes. Ti-sung thinks that's why the location is level 20. Now he sees what's going on. The man with the mustache asks if Ti-sung could help them. The system issues a new quest to protect the kingdom of Burman. According to the category, this is a regular quest. It is necessary to help the Burman kingdom until the situation is resolved. No progress yet. The reward is 100 gold. Looking at the holographic screen, the main character says that his level is too low to help. The man says that he is ashamed to talk about it. However, Ti-sung is the only person who managed to cope with the tiger alone. Moreover, their village is in the middle of nowhere. Therefore, to get outside help, you will have to wait about a week. The small houses are surrounded by green hills. Han Ti-sung mentally wonders if things are really that bad. He looks carefully at the blue screen, studying the text. He usually doesn't take on such tasks, but it all smacks of the possibility that he could get really screwed up here. The main character scratches his head and says that he understands everything. The man with the mustache clenches his fists happily, suspecting that Ti-sung will agree. Han Ti-sung smiles brightly, saying that he will help. At the same time, in the castle of the Schreier Kingdom. It is located near the kingdom of Burman. On a dark street, a chandelier with many candles hangs on a chain. One man in a sitting position is covered in blood. The second man without a leg is trying to crawl. He is covered in blood and breathing heavily, uttering prayers. An axe is raised above his head. A man with a knocked-out tooth and a black eye screams, begging for mercy. The axe falls on the man's neck and blood splashes around. Someone's voice says that he told the man not to look up, and how stupid these people are. The voice adds that there is no reason to worry. The character has a flowing robe and an elongated nose. This character smiles maliciously. He thinks that they will be ruled by someone who is far superior to them. A goblin with pointed ears and a gray beard holds a bloody axe. He wears a royal robe with fur and a pointed crown. Henchmen stand behind him. His eyes glow red menacingly. An establishment with a nailed-up sign depicting a shield and sword. A voice from behind the door thanks you for visiting the establishment and wishes you all the best. A hamster gnaws a yellow stone. He says that the man before looked like a beggar tramp, and now he looks like just a tramp. Han Ti-sung notes displeasedly that the spirit of the forest is being insolent again. The main character says that he can't walk around in rags forever. Red cloak, cropped jacket, high boots and arm ruffles. He has an iron mace in his hands. The hamster jumps from the wooden table onto the hero's shoulder. Ti-sung thinks that for now this weapon will probably be enough for him. He wants to try it as soon as possible. The hamster says that since the shopping is over, now it's time to eat. The main character gets angry and asks what it means to eat. After all, T-Sung just bought him magic stones. He is outraged that it seems the spirit has already eaten everything. The main character has a heated argument with a hamster on his forearm. They follow the road between the houses. The hamster claims that such low-grade stones do not satisfy his hunger. Han T-Sung calls him a pig. The hamster says that it is not his fault that his owner is homeless. T-Sung indignantly asks if the spirit knows how much he spent on these stones. Homa feeds on magic stones. A large blue stone stands in a row with a medium yellow one and a small turquoise one. Han T-Sung and the spirit continue to bicker, butting heads. 3 warriors come out to them. The man with the shield on his back asks if Han T-Sung was the one who took down the mutated tiger. The man with the shield says that he is glad to meet you. His name is Jang Man-bok and he will be the protagonist's companion in the upcoming mission. He extends his hand to the hero. He also represents Thompson and Roji. The man with the ponytail nods his head and says it's nice to meet you. A man with a dark red bob is touched when he sees a hamster. The main character understands that these are the same mercenaries that Jorik spoke about. Jorik advised the hero not to worry, because in addition to Han T-Sung there would be several more guys. Han T-Sung shakes the mercenary's hand and says his name is Jackfried, and that he was pleased to meet you. The man with the shield says he relies on T-Sung as a leader. T-Sung is surprised that he was named leader. The man explains that usually the strongest is appointed leader, and these 3 would never defeat a mutated tiger. Han T-Sung's face shows obvious disappointment. He assumes that the 3 want him to do all the work for them. But there is nothing to be done, and he reluctantly agrees. Thompson says that they have formed a detachment. He asks what they should do next. T-Sun says that Jorik asked to protect the kingdom from wolves and the bull. His gaze falls on one of the houses. The hamster sleeps on his shoulder. T-Sung suggests starting with the Baukert Ranch, since things are the worst there. Burman Kingdom, Baukert Ranch. On the field, knights fight with mutated wolves, tigers and bulls. The saber-toothed wolf tries to break through Jang Man-bok's shield. Its open mouth and claws press on the shield. Jang Man-bok calls Thompson. Thompson aims his long spear at the wolf's chest and strikes. The wounded wolf lets out a painful roar. Jang Man-bok falls on the grass and tries to catch his breath. He complains that it's hard for him and says everything would be different if he were 10 years younger. Thompson tenses up when he notices it's heading this way. Jang Man-bok asks in confusion what is going. A second later, a bull with 3 horns sweeps both men off their feet. The system reveals that it is a mutated bull. He is level 25 and has been mutated by an unidentified energy. The bull rushes towards the fighting Han T-Sung. Han T-Sung advises others to run away quickly. Suddenly he notices some movement. He clutches his weapon tightly in his hand. The main character chooses the skill of a powerful blow. This skill deals a powerful blow to the enemy. T-Sung swings his mace and runs towards the bull. The mutated bull also rushes towards the enemy. Han T-Sung hits the bull's head and knocks it down. The defeated bull slides along the ground for a few more meters. The system issues a notification about the level increase. Han T-Sung reaches level 20. The main character notices with irritation that there are too many people around him. Therefore, he cannot use the debuff skill in front of them. He thinks it would be better to hunt alone. Raoji approaches him, leading Jang Man-bok by the arm. Jang Man-bok asks if he is okay. Han T-Sung replies that he is fine. He asks how the others are, because he saw that the bull ran away towards where the people were. Jang Man-bok explains that he is a tank, so he escaped with bruises. But Thompson was much less fortunate. A man with a tail lies on the grass with a bruised face and unconscious. Jang Man-bok says there is no threat to his life, but he will be out of action for a while. The main character says with sympathy that this is how it is. Jang Man-bok asks if T-Sung really took down the mutated bull alone. He also asks if the hero has thought about becoming a pro gamer. Han T-Sung scratches his head in embarrassment and says that he was just lucky. The goblin with red eyes calls the creatures to return. The saber-toothed wolves turn to the side. The mutant bear abandons its prey. All the mutated animals rush away from the battlefield. The main character notices that all the monsters have escaped. He wonders if this counts as a successful mission. Han T-Sung thinks this is strange, the way the mutants simultaneously rushed into the forest, as if someone had given them an order. Another character replies that maybe it is. All that was left of the animals was the dust they raised. A new investigation quest appears on the screen. It belongs to the regular quest category. It is necessary to find out what caused the mutation of animals in the forest. Mission progress is 0%. The reward upon completion will be 200 gold. No precautions indicated. T-Sung studies the assignment. He believes that the new quest is about more than just clearing out monsters. The main character invites his comrades to leave first. He wants to track the mutants. One of the men asks if the hero can handle it alone. Han Ti-sung smiles and assures that he does. Moreover, he was the only one unharmed by the attack. The hamster asks people not to worry, because he himself will help the main character. Jang Man-bok reacts to this with shock and Raoji with emotion. He thinks the hamster is cute. The main character touches the marks on the ground. He thought they were working together. Han Ti-sung remembers that on the other side is the Schreier Kingdom. On the map, the Kingdom of Burman shares a border with the Kingdom of Schreier. Leaning on one knee, Han Ti-sung follows with his eyes where the tracks lead. He wonders if the monsters have decided to attack another kingdom. The hamster calls its owner to come over. The main character turns his head towards the noise. The spirit of the forest hangs on a tree branch. Ti-sung says he couldn't figure out where he went, but it turned out that he was having fun here. The hamster asked the man to look in one place. In front of Ti-sung lay a view of a large stone castle with massive walls. Ti-sung says that this is the castle of the Schreier Kingdom. The main character notes that there is not a soul in front of the gate. When the door opens, Han Ti-sung looks at what is happening in horror. The goblin rides out of the gate riding a mutated tiger. Other beasts and goblin minions gather around him. The head goblin, crowned and robed, grins smugly as he sits astride a snarling tiger. The system shows that this is a character named Grok. He is a legendary goblin who appears once every 100 years. This is a boss-rank goblin, Goblin Lord class. His attributes include lightning and fire. He has a mind control skill that can only be used on monsters. Han Ti-sung realizes with alarm that it is the Goblin Lord. Yes, and with the skill of mind control, he realizes that all mutants are his doing. The hamster nonchalantly stretches and asks if his owner understands the situation. And if so, what will they do? Han Ti-sung frowns tensely and says that first he needs to go back. In such a situation, he cannot cope alone. At sunset, the barracks of the King of Burman. Several military pavilions are fenced with a palisade. One of the warriors asks permission to introduce himself. A stern, bald man in armor introduces himself as Blehai. He is the commander-in-chief of the soldiers of the Burman Kingdom. The main character shakes a man's hand. He says that he is Jackfried and that it is nice to meet you. Blehai assures that he has heard a lot. He says that Jorik highly recommended the main character. He further adds that he would be happy to talk longer. However, the situation is urgent and requires immediate action. In the center of the tent on the table there is a map of military operations and figures. Several knights and mercenaries surround the table. The commander-in-chief says that it appears that the kingdom of Schreier has fallen to the goblin. He moves figures of wolves and goblins around the map. Blehai asks if Ti-sung thinks the goblin is involved in animal mutation. Remembering the events with fear, Ti-sung replies that he is sure of it. He is sure that the goblin used the skill of mind control over animals to take over the kingdom of Schreier. The threads from the goblin's clawed hand reach out to the animals, like a puppeteer's to the dolls. Ti-sung claims that the goblin now intends to attack Burman. The knight says that if this is true, then their kingdom is over. He is sure that they will not be able to resist the goblin. The main character tells the commander-in-chief that he will still have time to save the residents by sending them to a shelter. Blehai thinks about it for a moment. Jang Man-bok politely raises his hand and apologizes for his words. He says that Schreier's kingdom is literally next door. He is surprised that no one knew that it had fallen until now. He says he was not on good terms with Schreier. Moreover, they had no means of communication. Ti-sung adds that they were probably busy defending against monsters. Therefore, they could not find time to investigate. Ti-sung suggests that the Goblin Lord was most likely trying to create such a situation in which the Burman Kingdom will be isolated. The Goblin Lord with a scar on his face clutches in his hand a schematic model of land with houses. The commander-in-chief cannot believe that their kingdom, which has stood for 300 years, will be destroyed by a goblin. He clenches his trembling hand into a fist. He asks how he should say such a thing to the king. The main character says that there is always a way out. The commander-in-chief desperately asks what is this way out. Ti-sung crosses his arms over his chest thoughtfully. He says he's not 100% sure, but if there is time, everything can work out. Blehai asks what time we are talking about. Han Ti-sung confidently says that he needs enough time to grow. The main character says that the plan is very simple. The knights hide in the bushes while a pack of mutated beasts rushes through the forest. Ti-sung suggests using archers to injure the mutants. The knights from the bushes shoot from afar. Arrows stick into toothy wolves. Han Ti-sung says that next they must lure the animals to a place where the main character will be waiting for them. Knights in armor are desperately running away from several angry beasts. Han Ti-sung stands with a mace near a pile of defeated animals. He says that he will destroy them all in a trap. Ti-sung uses debuff magic in the form of downward pink arrows. While at headquarters, the main character addresses the commander-in-chief. He says that once he reaches level 30, he will join the others in fighting the goblin. Blicke talks thoughtfully about pumping. He adds that those who come from outside can level up much faster thanks to the Transcendence rune. However, the goblin is level 50, so if the hero gets to level 30, the difference is still enormous. Blicke represents a goblin with an axe on his shoulder. Han Ti-sung admits that the commander-in-chief is right. However, he managed to destroy the tiger, the difference with which was more than 20 levels. Therefore, defeating the goblin is possible. Ti-sung remembers how he dealt a crushing blow to the tiger. The main character says that if he fails, at least he will gain time in order for reinforcements to arrive. The commander-in-chief silently looks at the map. Suddenly a subordinate turns to him. Blicke lets out a heavy sigh. He agrees to trust Han Ti-sung's team. The flags on the military tent flutter slightly. The system shows the quest to defeat the Goblin Lord. The category of this quest is a regular quest. The progress of this quest is 0% and the reward for completion is unknown. No precautions indicated. The hamster attracts the owner's attention. He says he's interested in something. Ti-sung apologizes and says that he doesn't have money for food yet. The hamster indignantly asks what food has to do with it. He asks what he is, a pig or something. The main character answers yes, and then he clarifies what the spirit of the forest wanted to ask. The hamster asks if the main character was hiding something when he talked to that bald man. Ti-sung is surprised that the hamster noticed this. The hamster smugly declares that he is a great spirit after all. He notices such little things easily. He asks not to ignore his abilities. The main character points his finger at the screen. He replies that once he reaches level 30, he will unlock a new skill. He looks at the skills of hitting hard, scorning the strong, and controlling speed. The speed control lights up a little brighter. He says that this ability will greatly help him in the fight against Grok. Of course, there is no guarantee that he will win 100% of the time. Hamster asks why the hero is hiding this skill. Putting his hand in his pocket, Ti-sung replies that he doesn't want to open it yet. The main character says that there are other players here. If they find out about his abilities, rumors will spread very quickly. Jang Man-bok and Raoji are talking and gesturing actively. Homyak says that people like to live by inventing work for themselves. Ti-sung says that it's better this way than constantly getting bullied from life. Raoji turns around hearing the hamster, and Jang Man-bok asks Jack if he's finished talking to the commander-in-chief. Ti-sung awkwardly rubs the back of his head. He says yes, but he seems to be acting too confident. Jang Man-bok laughs and says it's nothing. They are grateful to him for agreeing to go on the quest with them. He stretches and yawns, and then Jang Man-bok mentions that they would like to rest and go to sleep. He asks if Ti-sung is going to quit the game. After all, the gaming session has already lasted 14 hours. Raoji is still looking at the hamster with affection. Han Ti-sung replies that they are going to start the plan to destroy the goblin in 2 hours. Therefore, he will also go and rest. The two companions say they will see him later and disappear. The hamster asks the owner if he is going to go out too. He admits that he will be bored. Ti-sung says he will be back very soon. In the meantime, he invites the hamster to chew on a yellow stone. Han Ti-sung throws the stone up. A hungry hamster attacks a stone. He is surprised that the owner decided to be generous. Before he has time to thank him, he remembers that the hero had previously mentioned the lack of money. Han Ti-sung smirks and says he lied. He says goodbye and logs out. A system notification indicates that Brave New World is ending. Ti-sung wearily takes off his VR glasses and squints. Getting up from a special capsule, he says that he is very tired. Walking across the littered floor in red sweatpants, he says that he needs to eat something else. He then plops down onto his sleeping spot on the floor. He wearily rubs his forehead with his forearm. Since he has little time, he thinks it would be better to sleep. Han Ti-sung, wearing a gray sweater, says that if you think about it, a lot has happened. His guild was destroyed and he went on the run. He sees flashbacks of the burnt castle and his pursuers in the forest. He then met a teacher and received the hidden class of Debuff Master. Ti-sung remembers training. Now he fights monsters to protect the kingdom. Han Ti-sung steps on the face of the defeated mutant. Previously, he played only to earn money, but now he enjoys the game. Han Ti-sung has a jubilant expression on her face. Lying on the bed, the main character wonders if he has finally started to like the game. He can't wait to get inside her again. Behind the door are people in uniform with a suitcase. Ti-sung says he wants to become stronger so he can enjoy all the pleasures of free play. He sits up abruptly on the bed, unable to stand it. He is considering whether to level up before starting the quest. And he missed Coma too. Suddenly someone knocks on the door. Someone says hello and says he needs Mr. Han T-sun. Hearing this, Han T-sun becomes tense. He cautiously peeks out from behind the door, asking who is there. After all, he is not waiting for anyone. One of the smiling men in uniform clarifies whether Han T-sun is the tenant of the apartment. He says they came to install the capsule. The main character looks at the boxes in amazement. He insists that he did not order the capsule. The employee in the uniform is surprised because this is the address indicated. He asks if the guy's name is Han T-sun. Han T-sun confirms this, but he repeats that he didn't order anything. The worker replies that their job is to deliver and install the capsule. He offers to take a piece of paper. He claims that they ask to hand it over. The epic code 007 is written on a piece of paper, and also congratulations from unknown people. The main character assumes that the epic code 007 has something to do with his class. He had heard that the hidden class had great benefits. Several dark silhouettes stand against the backdrop of the Glass Hive's skyscraper. Han T-sung suspects that this capsule was sent from the DNM headquarters. T-sung purses his lips in delight. He swings the apartment door wide open. He then kindly invites people inside. He calls the workers gentlemen and assumes that they are tired doing the work. The main character offers to treat them to a drink. He asks what they want. T-sung tells them to make themselves at home, even though his place is a bit cramped. Uniformed employees answer that there will be coffee, and the man in the suit falls silent with the phone in his hands. A red-haired man is talking to his boss. He reports that they are with Han T-sun, and that the guys will now begin installing the equipment. The speaker blares assurances that Manager Lee has done a good job. Another man in a suit looks out of the office window. Manager Lee asks if the interlocutor knows why the chairman gave such a gift to Mr. Han T-sung. He asks if they know each other. The man from the office says he has no idea. The man with the bob suggests that perhaps Han T-sun has the same hidden class. He suggests thinking that they are comrades. Han T-sun holds a remote control with 3 buttons in her hand. He had already seen the capsule in an advertisement. It starred the Guildmaster Genesis. A handsome blonde man poses in the capsule, then next to it and then with the remote control. The advertisement says that this capsule is for the best gamers. The VR capsule is called OGR. This capsule cannot be afforded by ordinary players. The main character presses the remote control button. This starts the operation of the capsule with the chair. And now she stands at his house. Han T-sun examines and feels the capsule from all sides. He enthusiastically says that they really gave it to him just like that. They wonder if they are completely crazy there. After all, he can't even save up for a used capsule in his entire life. He says that apparently these are the goodies for the hidden class. Putting a technological VR mask on his face, the main character says that there is not a minute to waste. He can get some sleep in the next world. T-sung can't wait to try the capsule. He notices that it feels very different from the old capsule. Han T-sun plunges into the game with a blissful face. He thinks that the body feels comfortable. It doesn't even feel like he's in a capsule. A blue glow forms around the main character. Han T-sung notes that everything seems very real. He feels the warmth and smell of burning. In front of him is smoke and sparks of fire. Han T-sung opens his eyes slightly. He repeats with suspicion that he smells burning. The forest and houses in the village are on fire. Han T-sung watches in shock as the fire consumes everything around him. Smoke rises from the fire. 2 wolves attack a man in armor, biting his arm and shoulder. He lets out a painful cry. The green goblin thrusts his blade into another knight. Another goblin looks on. The trees in front of the main character are on fire. Han T-sung asks in shock what's going on. The main character hears a cry for help, begging him to save the Great Spirit. A ferocious wolf with the paws of a griffin is chasing a hamster. Han T-sung realizes that it is Homa. With the last of his strength, the spirit of the forest screams that he can no longer run. He wonders if the Great Spirit's life will end here. Han T-sung charges at the wolf and swings his mace. The blow of the mace lands on the head of the mutated wolf. The out-of-breath hamster falls on his back and exhales tiredly. He calls his master. Han T-sung places his foot on the body of the defeated wolf. He turns to the hamster and asks if Coma is injured. The hamster rushes towards the main character, jumping right on his face. He is indignant that the owner came only now. He thought he was going to die. Han T-sung, with a scratched face, tells him to calm down. He asks what happened. A hamster, held by the scruff of the neck, waves its paws. He asks if the main character can't see himself. Homer remembers how Han T-sung left the game with a cheerful smile. He says that as soon as everyone left, the goblin, along with an army of mutants, attacked the kingdom. The Goblin Lord on the tiger's back commands other goblins and beasts to attack. The minions rush into battle, attacking people. Koma says that they were taken by surprise. Han Ti-sung grits his teeth furiously and frowns. He is angry at the Goblin Lord, who deliberately waited until the players logged out. Then he realizes that there are no players in the game now except him. The hamster yells that this is why there is such chaos here. The main character says that this is great, because now he won't have to worry about anyone seeing his abilities. The hamster stares at him in bewilderment. Han Ti-sung grins sinisterly and says that he has tasks for Hom. The hamster thinks that he doesn't like it anymore. The green goblin licks blood from the blade of the blade. He holds the bloody blade in his hand and strokes the wolf with his other hand. 3 knights line up in front of 2 women and a child, protecting them from the green goblins. The knight with the sword notices that there are civilians there, although it seemed to him that everyone had already been evacuated. The child is crying that he is scared. The knight thinks that now it will be difficult to take them to the shelter. If there were a couple of monsters there would be a chance. Several goblins and wolves lined up in front of them. The knight with scratches and blood stains on his face is breathing heavily. He wonders if this is the end. The goblin with sparkling red eyes raises a sword over the knight, but then the main character's mace hits him in the head. The tip of the mace becomes covered in blood. The knight watches in amazement as the wounded goblin falls to the ground. In several places blows thunder one after another. The system shows the use of the powerful strike skill, a skill that deals a powerful blow to the enemy. Mana swirls around the main character's mace when he attacks the goblin in a jump. Han Ti-sung roundhouse hits the green goblin in the head, knocking out his bloody teeth. The knight understands who is in front of him. The main character glances over his shoulder. He says he is aware of what happened. He recommends picking up the remaining residents and evacuating with them. The crew-cut knight replies that they can't throw all the work at mercenaries. He confidently adds that they will help. The main character thanks for the offer. Ti-sung begins to use magic in front of the knight. It uses the mortality debuff to reduce the enemy's defense, as well as an exhaustion debuff to gradually reduce the enemy's health and mana. The main character stands in a magic circle with symbols, blocking the knights from enemies. Pink arrows show the decrease in enemy characteristics. Han Ti-sung admits that he is more comfortable fighting alone. The knight in the helmet asks what it is, and the knight with a crew cut answers that he understands. He hands the belt with the flasks to the main character. He asks to take it. Although nothing special, he may have to. Han Ti-sung accepts the supplies with a smile. The knight says that they will take the remaining villagers to the shelter. He wishes the hero good luck. Han Ti-sung places the flask belt into the portal. He wonders if it would be okay if he showed his abilities to the NPCs. He had only recently used them, but it was still somehow unusual. Ti-sung notices some movement. The mutated wolf suddenly attacks the hero. He places the handle of the mace between the wolf's teeth. At this time, the goblin with a bandaged hand swings his sword. Ti-sung fights off the wolf, barely having time to turn around to face the goblin. He smugly remarks that mortality has worked well for them. The goblin lets out a battle cry. He swings his blade again. Ti-sung throws several punches. He asks if the goblin has lost his balance. Ti-sung fights off the goblin's attacks. He asks why the goblin doesn't run if he's in so much pain. Then he breaks with his foot, and then he grabs the enemy's head with his hand. Although Han Ti-sung wouldn't let him go so easily, Ti-sung slams his opponent's face into the ground. His eyes glow after the attack. He notes that the new capsule feels completely different. Han Ti-sung plays intensely while wearing VR glasses. He can see enemies' movements much more clearly. The game character Han Ti-sung is attacked by enemies from different sides. Of course, thanks to training with the teacher, he began to move much better. Ti-sung dodges the green goblin aiming at him. The clawed bird's paw of a mutated wolf flashes near his face. However, now he is able to dodge any attack. Han Ti-sung strikes a wolf, a goblin, and another wolf. Ti-sung says he has never met a player with money who played really well. The newest capsule in their hands is absolutely useless. After striking 3 creatures one after another with lightning speed, Ti-sung lands on the stonework. He got a triple murder. A system notification indicates that a level increase has occurred, and the fact that Ti-sung reached level 22. Ti-sung looks at the screen in surprise. It seemed to him that he had killed a large number of monsters, but he only reached level 22. He notices that after level 20 it gets more difficult. Besides, he has no time at all. The hamster rushes towards its owner, swearing loudly, and a crowd of monsters is rushing after him. He sobs and screams if this amount is enough. Han Ti-sung has an expectant smile on her face. He says leveling up is difficult, but the main thing is that there are many enemies around him. Han Ti-sun activates a magic circle with mysterious symbols. Beasts and goblins standing around experience its effects. The Goblin Lord thinks that this rat from the outside world has returned. He frowns with displeasure, noting that the hero has gone berserk. Apparently he poses a threat. If he is not stopped now, he will become a thorn in one place. His foot with overgrown nails stands on the back of a gray-haired man in a robe. The man lets out a painful groan. The Goblin Lord sits on the throne, and a man lies in blood at his feet. The Goblin Lord notes that the main character is different from those who are nothing of themselves. Blicka, with blood on his armor and head, holds a sword with a trembling hand. The rest of the knights lie on the floor covered in blood. Lehigh suggests that the goblin called Jack the Rat from the outside world. The commander-in-chief desperately clutches the hilt of the sword in his hand. He understands that Ti-sun will need time to level up, and therefore, under no circumstances should this green creature be allowed out of here. Lehigh loudly asks where the goblin is going. He challenges him to a fight, and he calls him a coward if he refuses. The commander-in-chief says that he will make a cutlet out of it. The Goblin Lord grins maliciously. He mocks that the man who failed to protect his king called him a coward. He invites him to save this old man. The Goblin Lord grabs the king by the head and puts the blade of his axe to his throat. He is even interested in knowing how long the old man will last. The commander-in-chief fears that the king does not have much time left. He hopes Jack will hurry. Han Ti-sun desperately fights off the crowd of monsters that surrounded him and the spirit of the forest on his shoulder. 30 minutes ago, the hamster is indignant that he does not want to do what was proposed. He is a great spirit, not bait. He asks what the main character will do if the spirit is captured. The main character crouched down next to the mutated puma. He says they have no choice. He asks if the hamster wants his owner to be a loser who only runs away from danger. Besides, if they leave, all the people here will die. The spirit of the forest indignantly demands not to drag him into their fights. Han Ti-sun extends his fist. He says he's not alone, and this is their common battle with the hamster. He asks the great spirit calm. He continues to hold his clenched fist in front of him with a friendly expression on his face. The spirit of the forest sighs doomedly. He places his small fist against the man's fist. He agrees if Ti-sun makes some treats for him after it's all over. The main character makes a promise. Present tense. Ti-sun apologizes while Homa sulks. He sits on Han Ti-sun's head. He almost threw off his hooves while running away from the monsters. He says that next time the person should not even think about asking him for help. Han Ti-sun says that Homa is such a great guy, but he must understand that they simply had no choice. Han Ti-sun adds that they destroyed everyone who posed a danger. Now they can rest. The hamster hastened to remind that it was all thanks to him. The main character stands on a dilapidated stone road, and defeated monsters lie behind. A fire breaks out in front of him. He opens one of the flasks that was attached to his belt. Ti-sun asks what about his other request. Hamster asks if Ti-sun is talking about the Goblin Lord. Hamster hasn't seen it in person, but it's definitely there. The main character drinks liquid from the flask and asks to continue. When the spirit of the forest was being chased by an angry crowd of mutants and goblins, he ran past the castle. Toma opened his mouth in surprise. A terrifying aura emanated from the castle. A dark purple glow surrounded the burning fortress. Although the hamster could not get inside, he was sure that the Goblin Lord was in the castle. Han Ti-sun pauses thoughtfully with a flask in his hand. He speculates that the Goblin Lord has taken over the castle. If the kingdom was attacked, such a high-ranking person as the king had to leave the castle. A gray-haired man in a robe stands behind Blicka. Han Ti-sun finds the situation strange. Moreover, he notices that the commander-in-chief is not visible at all. The main character takes off. He says we have to hurry. The hamster asks in amazement if they are leaving already. Ti-sun explains that the castle can be dangerous. Therefore, the spirit should stay. He says he will be back soon. The hamster makes a puzzled sound, and suddenly he turns around to the unconscious monsters. His fur stands on end with fear that someone might have moved. He shouts in fear that he will go with the main character. Ti-sun stops at the gates of a castle engulfed in fire and a dark, ominous aura. He notes that this is the castle of the Burman Kingdom, and that it is truly huge. Ti-sun also feels a terrifying aura coming from within. He thinks it would be dangerous to just walk through the front doors. Suddenly he turns back. Han Ti-sun wonders what the hamster is doing here. The breathless spirit replies that he wanted to go with him. Han Ti-sun repeats that it can be dangerous here. Toma first blurts out that he was scared, but then he corrects himself and says that he could not let a person go alone to such a dangerous place. The spirit of the forest winks patronizingly. The main character, not believing this, says that he is about to cry. The hamster climbs onto its owner's shoulder. He asks if he has a plan. Han Ti-sun doesn't understand what the plan is. The hamster says that although the hero has become stronger, the Goblin Lord sits in the castle. He asks what Ti-sun will do if his attacks don't work. Ti-sun notices that sometimes the hamster says intelligent things. However, they don't have time. He assumes a low launch pose, using his magic to push. He says that sometimes it is better to act without a plan and get lost. After this, he moves towards the gate with a powerful jerk. The hamster barely holds onto his clothes, resisting the wind. They approach the closed gate with a loud hamster scream. Han Ti-sun breaks through the door with the force of his punch. He lands on his haunches on the long carpet in the hall, breaking himself with his hand. Hamster rubs his sore back. He declares that the man is crazy, and that he apparently doesn't know how doors work. You could just open them and enter. The main character waves him off and asks him to shut up. With a tense face, he notices something ahead. Sir Blighy leaned against the column in bloody clothes. He says he knew the hero would return. Ti-sun notices that Sir Blighy's hand is not doing well. The knight sits on the floor, holding the open wound in place of his missing right arm. Han Ti-sun runs up to him and asks what he is doing here and why he didn't evacuate. Blighy says that despite everything, he is a knight, and that he is obliged to defend his king to the last. Han Ti-sun grits his teeth. He realizes that the king is also in danger. Suddenly, the main character hears a creepy voice. The creepy voice recognizes him. He says that Ti-sun is the person who puts a spoke in his wheels. Ti-sun sees the Goblin Lord. He holds his bloody hand in one hand, and in his second hand he holds an axe. The goblin says that Ti-sun is the only person who has lasted this long against his monsters. Now he understands why this pathetic insect was stalling for time. The main character didn't understand what he was talking about. The Goblin Lord pointed his axe at Di-seong. He laughs and tells him not to pretend. He asks if Ti-sun really takes him for an idiot. Wounded and broken bodies lie on the floor. The goblin adds that these knights fought until their last breath to give him time to become stronger. But what's the point if they died in vain? The protagonist's face darkens with rage. Blighy yells at Jack not to listen to him, and that they did what they were supposed to do. Han Ti-sun becomes calmer and decides to ask Sir Blighy something. On the floor behind the goblin lies an old man covered in blood. Di-seong asks if that man is the king. Blighy confirms that yes. With a grim expression on his face, the protagonist clutches his mace. He tells Blighy to sit here and not twitch. The commander-in-chief asks Jack not to be fooled by the goblin's provocations. Despite protests, Han Ti-sun moves forward. The goblin chuckles and asks if Han Ti-sun really decided to attack him. He says his pride has clouded his judgment. The Goblin Lord swung his axe. He says that this is why worthless people deserve to die. Han Ti-sun has a menacing aura around her. His eyes glow and he activates the seal on his hand. The system shows the speed control skill. This skill reduces the speed of movement, attack and spell casting. The Goblin Lord strikes with his axe, but their blows do not meet. Han Ti-sun rushes past him, dodging. The goblin says that the main character missed. He teases him, asking if it was an accident or a plan. Ti-sun turns his head angrily, holding the king in his hands. Han Ti-sun tells him to remove his dirty appendages from the hand he is holding. The goblin still holds Blighy's severed arm in his hand. He clenches his teeth furiously. He says that no one dares to order him. A goblin in a red cloak rushes towards Han Ti-sun, who is holding the wounded king on his shoulder. Han Ti-sun swings his leg with all his might. He kicks the goblin in the chest. The goblin understands that the hero's mistake was not an accident. He bends in half, flying to the side. Goblin wonders if Ti-sun has gotten faster, and then he realizes that it was he himself who slowed down. Ti-sun's magic envelops his legs. The goblin experiences a disgusting feeling, as if he cannot control his body. Magic chains encircle his entire body. The Goblin Lord doesn't understand what the protagonist has done. Han Ti-sun holds the king on his shoulder. He says the speed control skill is better than he thought. Looking at the goblin, he can confidently say that this is a success. Closing his wound, Blighy calls Jack. Han Ti-sun offers his severed hand to the commander-in-chief. He tells him to take her. Although it would not be possible to attach it back, it seemed to him that Blighy should have it. Han Ti-sun says that Sir Blighy and the others sacrificed themselves to buy him time. Now he will make sure that their sacrifice was not in vain. Ti-sun lays the wounded king on the ground. He tells Koma to stop hiding. Instead, take them away from here. The hamster hiding behind the bloody armor raises its ears and agrees. Blighy thanks the hamster for his help, but notes that he is dragging the king. Therefore, he asks to pull it more gently. The hamster, making every effort, replies that Blighy needs to stop wailing. Instead, he should walk faster. Han Ti-sun breathes out a sigh of relief. After all, he did the most important thing. He turns his gaze towards the enemy. He thinks that all that remains is to destroy it. The goblin bound in chains says that T-Sun not only killed his mutants, but also deprived him of his prey. The goblin lord violently breaks one of the chains. He assures that a person should not expect mercy. Han T-Sun holds the end of the chains. He says that now he can relax. He invites the enemy to have fun. His eyes burn with the desire to start the battle. Dust rose into the air. The Goblin King stomped his foot hard. He was surrounded by chains of blue energy. He swung a huge axe, and the main character was behind him. T-Sun hit the opponent with his mace. The Goblin King gritted his teeth and glared at him. Screaming, he swung his axe and threw the main character into the wall. T-Sun thought that he was starting to adapt to the speed regulation skill. He wondered if high-level bosses were always this difficult no matter how good his stats were. Walking up to him, the Goblin King said that he looked unhappy. He asked where his arrogant behavior had gone. Smiling widely, he asked if he thought he could win this battle with these cheap tricks. He said he seriously underestimated him. The Goblin King said that he would not just kill him, he would cut off his limbs, chew his flesh and place him on the altar of the god of war, and then slowly cut off his head. While rising to the ground, T-Sun thought it was annoying, but like he said, speed regulation has a limit, because it is a support skill, not an attack skill. Looking at the dialogue box, he thought that aside from that, he didn't have enough mana to use any other skills, and if he had known that, he would have tried using that skill first. Frowning, he wondered if he should use this skill now. The dialogue box disappeared into thin air. Having rushed to attack, the main character thought that he would wait for a better moment. The Goblin King asked if he was tired of fighting like a moth. T-Sun swung his mace, and the monster, holding out his hand, asked if he had come up with another party trick. They exchanged strong blows. The protagonist's hand went up in recoil, and the Goblin King said it was a good expression. Swinging his axe, he shouted that he needed to think quickly. Throwing quick punches, he said, even if he doesn't have much brain power, it's nothing to him. The Goblin King grabbed him by the throat with an evil grin. Blood gushed from the main character's mouth. The Goblin King, stepping on him, asked if he knew that since ancient times, people had regarded the goblin race as insignificant and barbaric. He said that he had to admit that, to some extent, they goblins were indeed not inherently superior beings. By kicking the main character in the stomach, he said that he would change it. Imagining himself riding a tiger, he said that one day people and even those above them would fear and worship them, the goblins. Smiling widely, the Goblin King said that this is a life goal that the Goblin Lord must carry on his shoulders, and his determination is different from that of a mercenary nobody without a cause. Smiling, T-Sun said that it was very touching. He asked if he knew why they couldn't escape their treatment even now. The Goblin King bulged his eyes, clenched his teeth, and the main character said that it was because they were just low-class dirty scoundrels. He told him if they wanted to be respected, wash themselves a little. Clutching the handle of his axe, the Goblin King asked if these were his last words. Swinging his axe, he told him to just die finally. Frowning his eyebrows, the main character said that now is the time. The system reported that speed regulation was deactivated. The blue chains around the monster disappeared into thin air. The Goblin King struck the ground with his axe powerfully. His eyes bulging, he thought that he had put in too much force, or rather, his body had become lighter. He thought that he could not reach his axe. He wondered if this was really what he wanted. The main character, frowning, swung his weapon. He struck his opponent with a mace from different directions. The Goblin King fell to the ground screaming. T-Sun swung his axe and the Goblin King whistled. The main character turned his head sharply. The huge tiger immediately threw him aside. T-Sun fell to the floor. Getting to his feet, the Goblin King said that he did not want to break the castle. Turning around, he said that, to be honest, he was surprised that it would come to this. The main character stood up, opening one eye. The Goblin King's hand was enveloped in purple energy, and he said that the fun would end there. While riding a tiger, he said that the Goblin King's real ability is mind control, and he will trample him with the strongest mutant he painstakingly modified. He rushed to attack. The impact scattered stone fragments to the sides. T-Sun fell to the ground with force. The Goblin King, laughing madly, told them to consider it an honor that this castle would become their tomb. The main character said no, and this will be his grave. Surrounded by purple magic in the form of scales, he asked about what he called his mercenary without a cause. The system reported that disdain for the strong was activated. The dialogue boxes say, Gorugo is on a higher level than Siegfried. Damage dealt to Gorugo is increased, and damage taken is reduced. Gorugo was surrounded by blue pluses, and the main character said that he was not just some mercenary nobody. Garugo gritted his teeth and Tsung said that he was a debuff master. A blue flash flashed. He said that he was the one who would stand on top of this world. The system reported that he had cleared the quest to protect Bierman Estate. The sun was sinking below the horizon. The main character thought that this long day was finally over. Bloodied Garugo and the tiger lay on the floor. When the Goblin King died, the mind control over the monsters dissipated. Someone hit the goblin on the head. The remaining monsters were destroyed. Manbok exhaled and asked if that meant they had finished the quest. Among the remaining people, those who had only minor injuries rallied their strength to reclaim the area. The main character was sitting among the white tents. After drinking the potion, he said that he finally felt alive. Leaning back, he said that the potion that could bring him back from the brink of death was truly incredible, and he could not experience such things in real life. Smiling, he thought that he still couldn't believe it. He thought that he was able to defeat such a powerful Goblin King by himself. Tsung thought that if he didn't have enough mana to use Disdain for the Strong back then, he would die. The dialogue box says, "Disdain for the Strong increases damage dealt to enemies with a higher level than yours and reduces damage received. Effect increases with a greater level difference." The main character thought that among all the debuff skills he learned, this one is legendary in terms of its cheating abilities, but given its very long cooldown, he should use it with caution. Looking at the dialogue box, he thought that, moreover, he could not continue to hide his skills during the battle. Someone asked if it was okay for him to be out already. Tsung greeted Blick with a smile. Blick said that judging by his facial expression, he is fine and has excellent vitality. Having risen to his feet, the main character asked if he was sure that he was already allowed to go out. He said he should rest a little more. Blick, grinning, said that it was stuffy for him to constantly sit in a closed tent, and he also received an order from the Lord to bring him to the castle. The main character, walking on the ground, said that the Lord, it seems, was also wounded. He asked if he was okay. Blick said he could have been in real danger if he had been even a little late. He said that right now he has received treatment and feels much better. Laughing, he said that he was famous for being a robust general despite his appearance. Tsung thought he was embarrassed to say this, but it looked like he would be busy for a while. He looked at Blick's lost hand. After apologizing to him, he said that if he had come earlier, he would not have lost his hand. Blick said that he doesn't have to worry about it because he should be thanking him. Smiling, he said that without him they would have lost all this land, and losing an arm is a small price to pay for protecting the territory. Tsung said with a smile that Blick is indeed a knight. Turning away, Blick exhaled and suggested moving on. A gust of wind blew and he said that everyone was waiting for him. The Lord, trembling, exclaimed that he was the very man who saved this territory. He said that he was Baron Wegman, Lord of the Bierman territory. The main character said that his name is Siegfried. Wegman said that even his name has the power of a hero. Falling to his knees, he said that now was not the time for this and asked him to accept his gratitude for saving their territory. Suddenly, Wegman's back began to hurt. Screaming, he fell to the ground, and one of the knights said that he was worried and knew something like this would happen. Wegman exclaimed that he was going to die. Tsung asked with a grin about being a general. Wegman, rubbing his face, said he saw him inappropriately. Sitting on a rock, he apologized and said that his body had not yet fully recovered. He said he wanted to express his gratitude again. The main character said that he didn't need to be so grateful, because after all, he was hired as a mercenary to help. Wegman said it didn't matter from what perspective he helped them. What was important was that he risked his life to protect their territory. He said that without him, this peaceful and beautiful area would have fallen into the hands of the goblins. He said that was enough talk and told them to follow him because he had a gift for them. Tsung's eyes flashed and he thought that it was quest reward time. They walked towards a huge broken door and he thought that since the difficulty was so high compared to his level, the reward must be incredible. He and Wegman walked through the dark stone room. Looking at the hole in the ceiling, the main character thought that they ended up in this place after the battle with the Goblin King. And then he did not notice it, but it was quite spacious. Looking around, he thought that it looked like an altar. Wegman said it was a treasure trove created by his ancestors, who loved collecting antiques. Taking out the box, he said that now most of the collection was lost or sold, and there were almost no treasures left here. Throwing the box to the main character, he said that he still had one thing left that could be called a real treasure. Tsung opened the box. He opened his eyes in amazement. There was a text in front of him in the yellow energy, and he exclaimed that this was a voucher from Mercedes' workshop. History throughout, the continent of Nurburg was a world where magic, alchemy, and metallurgy were highly developed. Over thousands of years, those technologies continued to advance, becoming closely intertwined to the point where the boundaries between them blurred, and a phenomenon of fusion between the technologies emerged. That crystallization came to be known as an artifact. It was an amalgamation of magic, alchemy, and metallurgy. With the emergence of supersized workshops specializing only in these artifacts, the Autonica with technological prowess, the Bimerian with destructive power, and the ultimate Mercedes, people regarded these three workshops as the best and called them the three great houses of the continent. Among them, the highly regarded Mercedes Workshop voucher was a reward for the Goblin Lord quest. Mercedes Workshop 100% plus 12 enhancement voucher. Official enhancement voucher issued by the Mercedes Workshop. Allows any artifact to be enhanced 12 times in a row with a 100% success rate. No level limit. The main character, opening his mouth in amazement, thought that, with this level of enhancement voucher, it's worth it. Wegman said it was 700 years ago. He said that when the Mercedes Workshop first opened its doors, it faced financial difficulties. As a desperate measure, they sold these coupons for only 1,000 gold. He said that back then 1,000 gold was still too much of an investment for a new workshop, and at that time Mercedes was nothing more than a hole-in-the-wall shop. He said that his ancestor, Earl Graham, helped Mercedes, who was being ignored. The gray-haired mustachioed man smiled, holding the voucher in his hand. Wegman said he didn't know whether he predicted the future or whether he just liked collecting odds and ends, but it turned out to be the best investment. Turning around, he said with a smile that it seemed that these vouchers had finally found their owner. Tisung said that this was too much for him, because now it would cost tens of millions of gold. Sighing, Wegman said that it was just an object without an owner. He said that initially they were going to give it to a descendant with the qualities of a strong leader, but there is no such thing. Sighing, he said that his son was the most outstanding descendant he had, but even he was not suitable. The main character thought that everything was obvious without even looking. Wegman asked if he could fulfill his request. He said that in fact, when he briefly regained his consciousness, he felt as if someone was dragging him, and he briefly went outside. He said that at that moment he saw it. He said that he saw his strong and unwavering gaze. Clenching his fists, Wegman said he believes he will be a hero who will shake the continent. Scratching his head awkwardly, Tisung said that receiving such direct praise was embarrassing. Wegman asked if he later became a hero would he help his son. The main character looked at him questioningly. Wegman said he, too, wants to invest in him as a hero, just as his ancestor did before. He said that he may not know much, but he can recognize courage and bravery. Tisung said that since he put it that way, he couldn't refuse him. A golden voucher appeared in his hand. Smiling, he said that he would definitely take care of his son. The dialogue box says, Promise with Baron Wegman. Category, General Quest. 1. When you reach the level of Master or higher, repay the gratitude to Bierman Territory for today's help. 2. Go to the capital and establish a relationship with Baron Wegman's son. The main character thought, shouldn't this be his reward? He walked outside, looking at the golden ticket in his hands. He asked what he should do about it. Tisung said that even if he just auctioned it off, he could easily make several hundred million, if not more. He said that with this money he could pay off all his debts and even buy a new house for his mother. He imagined his master, who angrily said that he would beat him, the pathetic fool who can't see the forest for the trees. Smiling nervously, the main character said that he needed to think about it longer. Putting the ticket in his inventory, he said that the right action now would be to invest in his future, and the money would appear over time. Turning to the side, he asked where Hamji was since he had not seen him all day. Frowning, he said he hoped he wasn't up to something weird again. The sun was shining over the wooden building. Hamji said that should be enough. Sitting on the table, he moved the back of his body. Manbok laughingly said that he was a good dancer and his daughter was also so cute when she was little. Hamji said dissatisfiedly that this dance is not free. Manbok said that they can't take away this cuteness for free, so he will give him a snack. After catching the nut, Hamji thanked him and asked if they wanted to see anything else, such as a stupid parody of his stupid master. Tisung, standing behind him, asked about the stupid master. Picking him up on the ground, he said that he was here and did stupid things. He asked what kind of streamer he was. Hamji said that he could imagine what it would be like to have such a lousy master and resort to this. He told him if he wasn't going to give him food, don't bother him. The main character said that he thought that he only ate magic stones. Hamji said that he only eats them when he is low on energy. Manbok asked if this was not Siegfried, and where he was. He said they looked everywhere for him. Tisung said that he had business in the castle. Manbok said that he always looks busy. He asked if he had received his quest rewards yet. The main character said that he was going to get them now. Manbok said that he had never received so many awards in his entire BNW life, and if Thompson, who ran away because he was scared, found out about this, he would be very jealous. Smiling nervously, Taesung thought that it would be better not to mention the workshop voucher, and it would be like pouring cold water on his excitement. Jericho called out to him. The main character said that he was glad that he was safe. Jericho smiled and said that he was safe thanks to them. He said his pockets were empty due to repair costs. Handing the bag to the main character, he said that they still need to settle up, and the reward for this mission is 5,000 gold. The main character smiled awkwardly and apologized. Jericho asked him in a whisper that he went to the castle separately to receive additional rewards from the Lord, but did not tell the other mercenaries about it. Taesung said he has good sense. Placing the bag on the table, he asked if he could ask him something. Jericho asked what he wanted to know. The main character said that when he went to the castle, he did not see the corpse of the Goblin King. He asked if he knew where it was disposed of. Jericho said that these corpses should be near the shore of Lake Bierman. He said that he heard that the Lord hanged goblins who tried to escape as a public display. Jericho said that they were so miserable that even he felt queasy when he caught a glimpse of them in the morning. Looking away, the main character thought that Wegman was really tougher than he looked. He wondered if it was time to say goodbye to the Bierman estate. Looking around, he thought it wasn't long, but he had experienced and grown a lot. He wondered if the master had sent him here because he had foreseen it. Smiling, he thought that, thanks to him, he's off to a good start. Someone stamped their foot on the street. A man with a huge sword and gray hair shouted, "Disciple." He shouted that he had done it. Blood gushed from the protagonist's ears. Jericho exclaimed in irritation that his eardrums almost burst. He asked who was drinking at this hour. The main character said that it seems to him that he has already left. He opened his eyes and noticed this husky and carefree voice in calling someone disciple. He wondered if this was the master. A crowd of people had gathered outside. Someone asked if it was a bear or a man. Manbach said he had never seen such a high level before. The main character apologized and asked to be allowed to pass. He opened his eyes in amazement. A strong elderly man stood in front of him with a wide smile, and the main character, doubting, thought that this was not a master. Calling him a student, the man said that they had finally met. Taesung opened his mouth in amazement. Pointing his finger at himself, he asked if he was talking about him. The man asked who he could talk about if not him. Hamji asked if this old man was the master he was talking about. He said he looked scary. The main character said that he looks unfamiliar and he doesn't look like an old man. He activated Rune of Insight. He opened his eyes wide. The dialogue box says, Beetlejuice, named NPC, Human, 361 level, Sword Emperor, 5-star Heaven. Beetlejuice, grinning, asked if he saw who he was. Taking out the sword from behind his back, he said that he was the Grandmaster among the 5-star Heaven. Shrouded in blue energy, he said that he is the Beetlejuice who separates the mountains and the sea with the supremacy of the sword. Blue energy sparkled around him. The main character thought that he had heard about him. 5-star Heaven refers to the 5 stars in the sky of the Nurburg continent. It's what they used to call the 5 masters who have reached the mastery level. Taesung thought that he had met a named class expert in such a remote countryside. Then he thought that he had also met his master in the forest. Looking down, he thought that, unexpectedly, sparsely populated places are a good place to encounter geniuses. Beetlejuice asked if he would accept him as his master. The main character asked in amazement why he should be his student. Beetlejuice asked if it wasn't obvious. He said that if he says that he is his student, then it is so. Smiling, he said that he looked like a newbie, so maybe he didn't know much about this world. Rubbing his beard, he asked about how he still couldn't feel it even though he had heard about 5-star Heaven and Grandmaster. Grinning, he said that he would explain everything to him. The main character said that he already knows everything. Beetlejuice opened his eyes in amazement. Taesung said that he already knows about the 5-star Heaven, the continent's 5 stars and the 5 masters, and he knows that they are extremely strong. Beetlejuice irritably asked why he was reacting this way when he seemed to know it well. The main character's eyes flashed purple and he apologized, saying that he was a little late. The image of his master appeared behind him and he said with a grin that he already had a master to serve. Beetlejuice opened his mouth. Picking his nose, he asked if it was supposed to mean something. He told him to just leave that guy and serve him. The main character looked at him irritably. Smiling irritably, he asked if he would stop talking, since his master was stronger than him. He said that he received secret invulnerability techniques from his master. Beetlejuice asked if his master was Samjon. Taesung said with a grin that he was above that. Looking up, Beetlejuice asked about what he came out with in Samjon. The main character, holding up his finger, said that he was not sure, but yes. He said with a smile that he said he was invulnerable. Beetlejuice opened his eyes and mouth in amazement. Then he grinned, squeezing the hilt of the sword in his hand. He said that he was amusing with his wordplay. A wave of blue energy hit the area. His eyes sparkled blue and he said he was invulnerable. The protagonist fell to the ground and Beetlejuice said that he is arrogant. But he knows that he has respect for his master, so he will not force him to become his student. Slamming his sword on the ground, he said that he couldn't just go back like that. Smirking, he suggested making a bet, calling him an arrogant prospective disciple. The dialogue box says, urgent quest. Objective, win the bet against Beetlejuice of the 5-star heaven. If you lose the bet, you will become a disciple of Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice when he was 26 years old. In his youth, he walked the path of the strong while wielding a sword. He swung his sword, enveloped in blue energy. Swinging his sword, he cut through the stones and trees around. As a result of many years of hard training, cutting through flesh and blood, when he turned 120 years old, he finally reached the level of mastery he had longed for. The elderly Beetlejuice stood with a sword among the stumps. However, in his heart, emptiness took a greater place than joy. Two girls were talking irritably about how this madman had been cutting down all their villages for 100 years. Walking across the bridge, Beetlejuice wondered what kind of emptiness this was. Looking up, he wondered why he was so unhappy, because he had achieved what he wanted. He wondered if this was menopause. Turning around, he noticed two people. The man with the stick told the guy with the sword to relax his shoulders and focus. He asked if this was how he planned to become the strongest swordsman. The thought of a student dawned on Beetlejuice. He thought that even these perfect skills he created would become meaningless when he died, and he needed an apprentice to inherit his skill system. So he traveled throughout the continent in search of a successor. Looking at the guy with blonde hair, Beetlejuice said that he uses mana well, but lacks combat sense. Looking at the skinny guy, he said that his muscle strength was poor, and no matter how hard he tried, a person like him had his limits. He said that he had heard that there was a famous talent here. Seeing the grave, he asked in shock about being hit and killed by a cart. Grabbing his head, Beetlejuice thought that this was serious, and in order to raise a proper heir, he needed to train him for 20 years. He thought that he was already 130 years old, and at this rate he would die of old age while he was looking for a student. Looking at the map, he said that he had already looked almost everywhere, and only Bierman territory remained. Beetlejuice said that at that moment he came to Bierman territory with the goal of catching even a tramp, and the moment he saw him, he realized it. Pointing his finger at him, he said that this arrogant guy was destined to become his student. The main character angrily asked what he was talking about all this time, because he had no intention of becoming his student. Sighing, Beetlejuice asked if this is why he shows restraint and consideration to someone who is trying to take him by force. He told him if he didn't want to be his student, win the argument. Gritting his teeth in irritation, T-Sung thought that he was wrong, and he was an old man who did not listen to others. Looking at him, he wondered what he should do about it, since he couldn't just brush off a man of his caliber, and now he was stuck with the quest. He thought that he had no choice but to cooperate. Kneeling down, the main character, agreeing, asked what's the bet. Beetlejuice told him to hit him. T-Sung looked at him in amazement. Turning around, Beetlejuice said that he had one chance, and whether it was a blow or magic, if he took even a little damage, the victory was his. Turning around again, he told him not to worry too much. Smirking, he said that out of consideration for his current weakness, he would refrain from using mana, and would counter him with his bare hands. Laughing, he said that, of course, this body had been trained to the limit, so there are no weaknesses in terms of physicality. The main character thought that he did not want to do this. He wondered if he had just said that he would be barehanded. Beetlejuice said if he lacks confidence, it is not too late to become his student. T-Sung asked if he knew his name. Beetlejuice asked if it mattered, since he would find out sooner or later anyway. Taking out a mace from his inventory, the main character asked that the lack of curiosity about his name hinted at a lack of interest in him as a person. The dialogue boxes say, desperate defense, the enemy's defense and magic resistance decrease. Scorn of the strong, increased damage dealt to opponents with higher levels, decreased damage received. Smash, strike the enemy fiercely. The main character said that he only needed a vessel to pass on his skills, not an apprentice. He said that he would rather die than become the disciple of such a person. Beetlejuice, grinning, said that winning in a bet is all about defeating such words. T-Sung told him not to worry with a grin. Jumping into the attack, he said that he had no intention of losing. Beetlejuice thought that he was very predictable with his reckless movements, dispersing debuff skills across one part of the body, and he probably wants to weaken that area. Raising his fist, he thought that such tricks would only work on mediocre individuals. He thought that counter it is very simple if you only need to find the debuff body part. He opened his eyes in amazement. The debuff symbol was between his legs, glowing purple. The main character with bulging veins on his face swung his mace. He hit the mace with all his might. With his mouth wide open, Beetlejuice's eyes bulged. The explosion scattered stone fragments. Someone in the crowd asked what was going on. Someone replied that it looked like they were having some kind of bet. Someone else said he couldn't see anything because of the dust. Manhwa said that when he thought about it, this was the first time he had seen Siegfried fight properly. He asked if they were really on the same level as him. Jericho said that he most likely didn't just defeat the Goblin King by himself. He opened his mouth in amazement. Beetlejuice stood in a cloud of dust with empty eyes. Looking at his face, the guys asked in shock if he really died standing up. Manhwa scratched the back of his head and said that it looked like he was just unconscious. Jericho said the situation took a turn for the worse. The main character said that although he has reached this level of skill, it seems that he has not yet trained enough to be at that point. Grinning, he said that, as a man, he still felt a little sorry for him, and next time he better not bet so recklessly. Looking at the quest reward dialogue box, he asked if he won the bet if that meant the quest was over. The dialogue box asked if he wanted to receive a reward for the quest. Hamji asked what was going on. Tsung pressed the yes button. Hamji, appearing in front of the dialogue box, asked again what was going on. Noticing him, the main character asked if he was okay. Hamji, cursing at him, said that he still had a headache. The main character chuckled. Turning around, he told him not to worry, because everything had already been resolved. He suggested leaving here before he woke up and started bothering them again. Raising his head, he said that he was going to do something. Hamji asked if he didn't say earlier that he was going to go to the place where the Goblin King's body lay. Tsung said that he wanted to extract some blood before the body began to decompose, since it could be sold for a good price. Hamji, spreading his hands, said that he was really greedy. The main character told him to call him frugal. This is the site of Sohoka ruins in the Magellan Kingdom, where a massive level 500 monster called Python appeared 30 years ago. It's a popular hunting ground for adventurers at level 40 to 60. Mercenary guild near the Sohoka ruins. The guy was shouting that he was looking for 2 damage dealers and 1 healer for the team. Lots of other people were also looking for people to join the team. A girl in armor, trying to squeeze through the crowd, said that she was looking for members to join the team. A guy with long teeth asked about her looking for team members. He asked if she had room for a damage dealer. He added that he also upgraded his weapon to a unique one. The girl replied that the damage dealer's positions were full, so right now they were looking for buffer. The guy made a disappointed expression on his face. The girl bowed and apologized, and he left irritably. Raising her head, Gosrin thought that there were a lot of people here, but there were quite a few priests or buffers. Gosrin, adventurer, level 48, elemental mage. Standing in the crowd, she thought that it seemed like the people who were looking for team members were the same ones she had seen before, and most of them were probably in the same situation as her. She thought sadly that it seemed that today's search was doomed. Noticing something, she opened her eyes. Looking at the main character, Gosrin thought that he looked like he was new here. As she activated Rune of Insight, she thought that one could never be sure. Blue energy surrounded Tsung. A nervous sweat ran down her face. Approaching him, Gosrin apologized and grabbed his hand. The main character and Hamji turned around. Smiling awkwardly, Gosrin asked if he would like to join their team. The main character pressed buttons on an ATM, on the screen of which it was written, "Deposit is in progress." The door swung open. Going outside, he yawned and stretched. After the incident in the Bierman territory, he dealt with the cases that had accumulated in real life during all this time. Most of these cases were the payment of accumulated debts. Sighing, Tsung said about 200 million won in bank loans and 100 million won in private loans. He asked why he felt like his interest had increased. Remembering the 2 menacing guys, he thought that if you think about it, these loan sharks have been quiet recently, and they were the ones who caused the scene in his house. Walking down the street, the protagonist said that no news was good news in itself, and he just hoped they wouldn't contact him again. Noticing something, he looked back. A guy, sitting with a girl in an expensive convertible, asked how about Omaka's today. Tsung thought how much such a machine would cost. He made a lot of money this time from the Goblin King's quest, but he was just lucky because low-level players like him don't get many quests that pay well. BNW is also a world with extreme polarization. just like in real life. On the other hand, after level 200, many quests that allow for expensive and rare items to be obtained become available. In addition, there are zeal merchants that help low-level users. If a person has good physical and mental abilities, he can become a professional player. If a person enjoys broadcasting, he can become a game streamer. Standing by the road, Taesung thought that, in the end, you will eventually make money as long as you grow. He thought that now he only has a poor capsule without a VR capsule, but one day he will also buy a good foreign car. He thought that one day he would live in a penthouse and even marry a beautiful woman. Gosrin asked with a smile what skills he had. The main character returned from his thoughts to reality. Hamji asked why he had been spacing out since earlier. After apologizing, Taesung said that he was thinking a little. He asked what she was saying. Gosrin said her team is looking for a buffer or a priest. She asked if he didn't have a team yet if he wanted to join them. The main character was disappointed that she saw his class, and since he is a debuff master, she probably thought that he had a support class. He thought that he was thinking about really stupid things. He apologized and said that he was going to go alone. Hamji, pushing his face away, shouted that they would join their team. The main character asked in an angry whisper what he meant. Hamji, in an equally furious whisper, told him that he was completely clueless. He said, "Green light, thumbs up." Taesung asked what this means. Hamji asked if he was going to spend his whole life alone. He said that judging by his facial expression earlier, he looked as if he could already see his grandchildren. The main character said that he didn't think that much ahead. Turning away, he thought that he couldn't hide his skills forever. He asked if he could just cast debuffs from behind. Gosrin agreed and said that their damage dealers were all ready, so he could just relax and apply the debuffs. She asked with sparkling eyes if he would join them. The main character, looking at her, blushed in confusion. He agreed. They walked on stone slabs. Sohoka ruins west outskirts. Looking at the dialogue box, he thought, once a prosperous metropolis, this unfortunate city was reduced to ruins 30 years ago due to the fall and rampage of a lightning python. The python was eventually defeated, but the vast amount of mana that this monster possessed sawed into the earth and caused the natural occurrence of light attribute monsters. Rubbing his chin, Taesung said, "So light attribute monsters are the main ones here." The guy called out to Gosrin, and she responded with a smile. Itzy said that it is good that she found the debuffer, but isn't its level too low, because it only has 31 levels. Gosrin said that they will fight anyway, and everything will be fine if they apply debuffs from behind. She said that if anything happened, she would cover for him so he didn't have to worry. Itzy said that he cannot understand whether she is a bit off or just a kind person. He said that he's actually played with buffers and healers before, but this is his first time with a debuffer, so he's a little hesitant. Gosrin apologized with a wink and said that finding buffers or priests was not easy. She offered to try, since they were already on the same team. She opened her eyes wide. Grabbing Itzy by the head, she told him to duck down. A beam of yellow energy shot above their heads. The main character thought that this was one of the monsters created by the python's mana. 3 lizardlings stood on the stone ruins, surrounded by electricity. A spirit-type monster born from the mana left behind by the lightning python. There are a large number of them, and they attack humans in groups, so be careful when dealing with them. Level 35, Spirit, Light Attribute Attack. Gosrin ordered everyone to prepare for battle. She suggested they split up and she and Itzy would take over the center. She asked tankers to cover the monsters in front. Frowning, she turned around. Gosrin told the protagonist that he can use his debuff skills while standing behind them. Taesung agreed with an indifferent face. The monsters shot beams of yellow energy. The tankers blocked their attacks while Gosrin cast spells from behind. The guy with dark hair jumped forward and swung his sword. A girl with blonde hair asked him, even if he is a tank, is it possible to rush into an attack without any protection? The guy said that it didn't hurt him very much, and just tank hits and kill them would be enough. Turning around, he added that they didn't have anyone who could buff and heal them. Looking at the main character, he thought that there was no need to apply a debuff to this little thing. He wondered why she even brought this puny debuffer. The guy had a lot of scopes on him and he said he would take over all the tanking, so they needed to get this over with quickly and hunt something stronger. He opened his eyes in amazement. Many streams of yellow energy were shot at him. He opened his mouth wide, burning with electricity. He fell to the ground and a dialogue box announced that Slender Smiling Maiden had died. The girl with blonde hair opened her mouth in amazement. They were surrounded by a huge number of lizards, sparkling red eyes. The girl asked if there really were so many of them here before, because there were too many of them. Gosrin suggested retreating along the same route they came. Itzy shouted that they were already surrounded from behind. Gosrin, frowning, thought that last time there were not so many of them, and she was too careless. Taking the sheets of paper in her hand, she thought that there were 4 of them here, but she only had 3 escape scrolls, and it looked like she would have to stay. The main character told her to keep it. Sighing, he asked why waste it on him, since escape scrolls were quite expensive these days. He told her not to sacrifice herself. Gosrin asked what he meant. Turning around, Tisung said that she looked like the kind of person who would do such a thing. Turning away, he said that he understands that she is kind and considerate, but if she is too kind, she will look like a fool. He said that she should keep this escape scroll for herself. Gosrin said, but if I just run away? The main character, taking his hand out of his pocket, asked why she needed to run away. Snapping his fingers, he said with a smile that it wasn't even dangerous here now. Itzy and the girl turned around in amazement. The dialogue boxes say, weakening curse, enemies' health and mana gradually decrease. Desperate defense, enemies' defense and magic resistance decrease. A huge purple magic circle appeared under their feet. Gosrin looked at him, her mouth wide open in amazement. Tisung said that now that the debuffs are applied, it's time to go in for the kill. They began to fight the monsters inside the magic circle. The girl blocked the attack with her shield, and Itzy rushed to attack. He quickly jumped forward. He quickly struck his opponents, leaving a blue trail in the air. Straightening up, Itzy asked about how they were so weak that a few normal attacks were enough to kill them. The main character clapped his hands. Sitting on the stone wall, he said that he knows that they are all excited, but the monster's attack power has not changed, so if he relaxes, they will meet the same fate as the tank that died recently. Smirking, he wondered if this wasn't better than he thought. Surrounded by dialogue boxes, he thought that even if he just stood back and applied debuffs, he would gain a lot of experience points. He wondered if he should just become a debuffer and accumulate experience points. Someone shouted to be careful, and he turned around. A huge stream of yellow energy was approaching him, and Gosrin blocked it with herself. After blocking the attack with a magical barrier, she asked if he was okay. Tisung said yes, thanks to her. He thought that he had noticed earlier that her agility was serious. He thought that if she had chosen the rogue or archer class, her level would have been much higher. Looking at her, he thought that he was sorry that she had chosen the mage class. A dialogue box reported that the level had been raised. The girl said with a smile that they all raised their level by at least 1. Itzy said that if anyone saw this, they would think that they used cheats. The main character asked if everyone enjoyed the hunt. Coughing, he said that they didn't seem interested in him earlier, and he was glad that they all seemed happy. Itzy asked with a smile why he sounded so depressed, because he believed in him until the very end. The girl said that this is a new world, and buffs and heals cannot even compare. Itzy, gritting his teeth in irritation, asked how she dare compare him to these scrubs. The main character thought that they were very pathetic, and there's a reason why buffers are used to getting screwed over. The girl said that this was the first time she had seen a class that specialized in debuffs. She asked if he was sure it wasn't a hidden class. The main character twitched, smiling awkwardly and scratching the back of his head. He said that there were no hidden classes here, and if that were the case, he would have already joined a large guild. Itzy asked how his class was. Tisung said that it is a unique class that can only use debuffs, and it cannot do anything other than that. Itzy asked if this was a new class. All classes have 4 grades. Since his second job change, he couldn't distinguish grades. Sighing, the main character thought, did he overuse his skills because he couldn't see the class? He thought that he needed to be more careful in the future. Gosrin ran up to him from behind, handing him a handful of yellow crystals. She said that they had collected it while they were hunting to give it to him. The dialogue box says, lowest grade light crystal. A crystal formed from the energy left behind by the lightning python. It contains faint light energy. The main character asked if this was too much. Gosrin said that they usually give it all to the buffers after the end of the hunt, and they give it to him because thanks to him they had a comfortable hunt. Tisung said that, in that case, he would accept it with gratitude. Gosrin grabbed his palm with both hands. With sparkling eyes, she asked if he would continue hunting with them and if he would help them. The main character thought that she said that he could take it. He grinned. He said it was quite difficult to find a team. Gosrin asked the others if they heard it. She said Siegfried said he would continue hunting with them. The main character silently watched as they jumped joyfully. Smiling, he said that he didn't mind living a normal life for the first time. Hamji told him with a grin, just because of a woman, not to let it get to him. Tisung asked if he would shut up. A week passed since they entered the party. Adventurer's Rest, Intervention Hotel, Sohoka's Viewpoint. Someone asked if they would go their separate ways for today. Someone said they worked hard too. Their team said goodbye standing in the square. Pulling the door handle, Taesung thought there were no special events or big harvests, like when he got the Beerman Territory quest. Going outside, he thought he's been safely leveling up and a new auxiliary skill also opened, and he was able to reach a small achievement. He sat down on a bench and Hamji asked if he was going to do this today and return to the other world. The main character said yes, because he cannot let the newly learned skills go to waste. First, he decided to get the crystal fragments he got from today's hunt. He activated the skill and his palm began to glow blue. The dialog box says, activating attribute absorption. The crystals were shrouded in yellow energy. The dialog box says, absorb 0.36 light attribute energy from the lowest grade light crystal. Light attribute resistance increased by 0.36. After reaching level 35, the main character received a new support skill, attribute absorption. Attribute absorption. It is a support skill that lets you absorb attribute energy. Absorbing attribute energy increases resistance to that attribute, and if you can absorb a certain amount, you can strengthen that skill. On the surface, it looks like a skill that simply increases attribute resistance, but if you absorb a certain amount or more, it can also strengthen other skills. Leaning back on the bench, he said that the problem was that he did not know what this certain amount was. He asked when he could enhance the skill. Opening his eyes, he thought that, in any case, it was time to stop party hunting. He thought that he only needed to level up once and he could learn a new skill. New skills to learn, Flying Spur. Taesung thought that he will learn it tomorrow. He remembered Gosrin asking if he would hunt with her. His face immediately turned red. The main character fell on the bench and said that he would raise his level tomorrow and think about it then. Hamji shouted that he lay down on him. The sun was shining over the stone ruins. Opening the door, Taesung yawned and asked if everyone was together. He opened one eye. He asked why so many people were gathered here. He asked Hamji what happened. Hamji said he doesn't know either. The guy exclaimed that this was the Debuff master. Someone in the crowd shouted at him to form a team with him. Someone else shouted that he had reserved it first. Another one told him to get out of here because he came here first. Taesung asked if these people were crazy and why they were acting this way. Someone grabbed his wrist. Surrounded by a whirlwind of green energy, Gosrin led him through the crowd. The main character exclaimed in amazement, and Gosrin, holding 2 blue tickets in her hand, told him to hold on tight. Blue energy surrounded the tickets. The dialog box says, using the return scroll to teleport to the designated location. A column of blue energy rose above the ground. Gosrin said that she couldn't get used to the feeling of teleportation. The main character asked that this was the first place they came to hunt. Gosrin, smiling awkwardly, said that she didn't expect them to return here, but she was glad that she had set up the return scroll's destination. Taesung asked her what was going on. Gosrin said she thought he should see it first. A dialogue box appeared in front of him. The dialogue box had a video of the main character applying debuffs and a discussion of his power. Gosrin said video of their team hunting has spread throughout the community. She started talking about the person who took this video. The main character, frowning, said that only Itzy was not visible in the video. Gosrin, agreeing, said that he had already left the team, and she believed that he secretly recorded this video when he went to another area and uploaded it to the community. Turning to the main character, she said that she did not know why he did this. Looking away, Taesung said that they call him Hyung in front of him. He is trying to insert a knife into his back. He remembered how he stood in an embrace with Kim Jinwoo. Then he remembered his evil, traitorous grin. Frowning his eyebrows, the main character thought that it brought back unpleasant memories. Gosrin fussily apologized for forcing him to join their team. Taesung said that everything is fine and it's all Itzy's fault and she didn't do anything wrong. Turning around, he thanked her for saving him. Gosrin asked what he was going to do now. The main character said that he was going to level up again and go to another place. He said he didn't think he could stay here long because of all the rumors. Gosrin looked after him. Sweating nervously, she bit her lip. She called out to the main character. Taesung turned around questioningly. Gosrin asked with a smile if he wanted to form a team with her. They walked among the stone ruins and she said that there were many monsters here when she first came here, but today it is quiet, and there is no one here. Turning around, she asked if it was because his debuff killed them all. The main character smiled nervously in response. He thought it was awkward, and he didn't expect the two of them to form a team. Looking at her, he thought that it was becoming more and more awkward because she was getting irritated earlier. He wondered if he should have just done it alone. Gosrin turned around and looked at him with a questioning smile, and Taesung wondered how he could refuse her when she offered it with such a beaming face. Hamji asked if he agreed with him. The main character asked what he was talking about. Hamji whispered in his ear that this is a vibe, a connection. Slapping his hand on his shoulder, Taesung asked if Hamji was teasing him again, and he wondered if something good had happened to him since he had been pretty quiet lately. Hamji, dodging, said that he is quick on the uptake except when it comes to girls. Folding his arms across his chest, he said with a smug smile that this is why he feels great, and he thinks that he will finally get his first skill soon. The protagonist said that if he thought about it, if his level increased, his level would also increase, so he should also be able to obtain the skill. He decided to see what kind of skill it was. Gosrin, appearing nearby, asked if it was a pet skill. She said that, according to rumors, skills don't come out easily unless it's a high-tier pet. Hamji told her not to make him uncomfortable with that kind of talk. Folding his arms across his chest, he said that he was originally the great spirit of the forest, and he entered into a contract with the master on equal terms. He said he's more than just a pet. Gosrin apologized and said that she thought he was just a pet because he called him master. Hamji said it's a title they can't help but use in business dealings. The main character raised an eyebrow and looked at them silently. Gosrin said with a smile that she would also call him Hamji. Tisung said that he was wondering why she was so nice to him. He asked if it was because he was a good debuffer. Gosrin said that this is not entirely untrue. She said that, first of all, he looks good. The main character asked in shock what she said. Gosrin said she was joking. She asked that he had a knack for tempting. Tisung said that she is more mischievous than he thought. Hamji, rubbing his chin, said that this was very interesting. Sitting down on the rock, Gosrin said that she originally approached him because of his debuffing abilities, but now she has another reason. She said it was simple and she became interested in him. She said that she was interested in him not as a debuff master Siegfried, but as a Sieg gamer. The main character said that he is not such a great person. Gosrin said that even if he is not that great, he is still a good person. She said she noticed this while watching his gameplay over the past week. She said that during this time, he carefully took care of not only the debuff skills, but also the position, equipment status, and potions of each team member. She said that she had never seen buffer who cared so much about his team members. Smiling nervously, the protagonist thought that this was just a habit he had developed over time as a guild leader. Gosrin, crossing her legs, said with a smile that in this way she became curious about what kind of person he was in real life. Smiling, the protagonist said that he understood what she meant, but she did not need to be curious about him. He stood with his hands clenched into fists. Suddenly the stone floor collapsed under their feet. Tisung asked what was going on. Gosrin, holding out her hand, called out to him. The dialogue box says, "Abnormal state. You are currently in a stunned state." The system began the countdown to recovery. The main character suddenly opened his eyes and mouth. Sitting up, he wondered if he was stunned. He thought, the ground suddenly collapsed. What kind of lightning was that? Gosrin asked if he had woken up. The main character turned around. He saw Gosrin and Hamji, who said that he had finally woken up. Tisung turned his attention to Gosrin's shoulder. She smiled awkwardly and said that it was nothing much. Hamji said that when he fell, she covered him and was hit by debris. The main character apologized for being a burden. Gosrin said that everything is fine and she drank the potion so that she is recovering. Looking to the side, she asked if he could see it. In front of them was underground Sohoka ruins, Osric cult's laboratory. Tisung said that he had never heard of this religion. Gosrin said she hasn't heard about it either, but there are a lot of suspicious things here. She said that there were countless corpses of soldiers and lizardlings here, and the situation where lizardlings appeared in droves could be related to this place. She said that she had never heard of such a dungeon in Sohoka ruins. The main character, having finished her meeting, asked with a grin if it was possible that this was a hidden dungeon. A hidden dungeon is exactly what it sounds like, a secret dungeon. It's a special dungeon where special monsters and quests like Garugo the Goblin Lord appear. The main character, with sparkling eyes, thought that this meant that the reward was also special. Gosrin thought that his eyes suddenly began to sparkle. She asked if the two of them would be okay since the hidden dungeons were quite difficult to complete. The main character asked about someone coming out. The man came out of the corridor holding his hand. He fell to the floor. Tisung and Gosrin nodded as they looked at each other. The guy drank a red potion. Exhaling, he thanked them for helping him survive. The main character asked what happened here. The guy, showing his badge, said that he was a member of a secret society called the Guardians, and he was sent along with his colleagues after they heard that the Osric cult, an evil group, was located in the Sohoka ruins. He said that the members of the Osric cult were stronger than they expected, and he was left with no choice but to escape. The guy said there is still a chance he is being shameless, but only they can do this for them. He asked if they could thwart the conspiracy of the Osric cult. The main character thought that this was definitely a hidden quest. He asked how they could do this. The guy said that they need to destroy 5 spheres in their research lab, and if this is not done, the disaster will be reborn. Several people appeared in the corridor. Gosrin said that these are members of the Osric cult. Tisung, taking out his mace, said that he would take them upon himself. He told Gosrin to protect that man. Gosrin said that his debuff skills won't be enough. The main character said that she got hurt because of him, so he should take responsibility. He asked if she could promise him something. Smirking, he said that from now on, she could not take videos or photographs of him. The opponents rushed to attack, and he calmly told her to promise that she would not spread what happened here. The main character's eyes flashed with purple light. He destroyed all opponents with quick blows of his mace. Tisung said with a confident grin that he will clear this dungeon. The dialogue box says, "Thwart the conspiracy of the Osric cult. Hidden quest. Destroy the energy orbs in the Osric cult's research lab to thwart their conspiracy. Progress 0%. Note, if you don't destroy the energy orbs in time, disaster will resurrect." The cultist was thrown into the wall. He said they are not guardians. He asked if he was an adventurer. The main character replied that he did not need to know this. He asked where the laboratory was. Sitting down opposite him, he said that he would spare his life if he answered him. The cultist told him not to make him laugh, because they, the Osric cult, do not beg for their lives. He called him a heretic with a mad smile and said that it seemed like he had come here to get a share of their research laboratory. He said that he would soon deeply regret coming here with this desire. Rising to his feet, Tisung said that he recognized his loyalty, and no matter how much he asked him, he would simply recite scriptures. The cultist said that even if he tortured him, his answer would not change. Squeezing the handle of the mace in his hand, the main character asked why he should torture him, because it was too cruel. He said he just wanted to release his stress. He said that he had not fought for a long time, so his body was itching a lot. The cultist looked at him blankly. Swinging his mace, Tisung grinned and asked if his allegiance had changed. Licking his teeth ominously, he said that he really wanted to break something. The cultist said that if he went inside, there would be a fork in the road, and if he went straight to the right, he would find their research laboratory. The main character hit him on the head with a mace. The cultist lost consciousness, and Tisung suggested they go, because now they know where it is. Gosrin asked why. The main character asked what she wanted to ask, why he hid his power. Turning around, he said with a smile that he would tell her everything after this quest was over. He asked her to wait until then. Sighing, Gosrin smiled and agreed. Walking down the corridor, she told him to promise that he would tell her later. The main character promised. The guy looked after them silently. The lizards were in green glass containers. The corpses of the cultists lay on the floor. Underground ruins of Sohoka, main building of the Osric cult's research laboratory. Picking up the sheets of paper, the white-haired cultist said that it was useless. Turning around, High Priest of the Osric cult, Romulus asked if they, the Guardians, had better things to do besides interfering with their research. The guy shouted that their goal is to protect the world, and they, Guardians, will not tolerate their evil plot. The blade of the blade flashed in front of his throat. Romulus swung his sword and blood sprayed in all directions. Sheathing his sword, he told the rest of the cultists to clean up the place. He asked the bald cultist what happened to the guardian who had escaped earlier. The cultist said that other evangelists were chasing him and he was seriously injured, so he could not go far. Squinting, Romulus grinned and thought that these pathetic guardians were raged and tried to stop them. But in the end, they failed. Standing in front of the giant apparatus, he mentally told them to watch from the heavens the resurrection of the Demon King, who will ring the holy bells of their church. The flame appeared from a huge magic circle. The stream of magic exploded, scattering stone fragments. Romulus looked up in amazement. His eyes widening in shock, he screamed desperately. Someone asked what happened and he turned around. Gosrin held a staff shrouded in flame magic in her hand, and Tisung praised her for her excellent shot. Romulus asked who they were and whether they were guardians. The main character asked why everyone he meets asks if he is a guardian. He said he was a saboteur. Romulus wondered if they had already killed all the priests outside. He ordered the researchers to increase the output. He said that now that the intruders had broken in, they needed to immediately begin the resurrection ritual. He pulled the lever. Yellow energy enveloped the thick wires. The spheres above the devices began to glow with bright yellow energy. The dialogue box says, "The resurrection ritual begins. You must destroy all 5 orbs within 5 minutes to prevent the resurrection of the boss monster. Destroyed orbs, 1 out of 5. Remaining time is 5 minutes. Gosrin exclaimed that this is a time attack quest. The main character asked her to focus on destroying the remaining spheres, and he would take care of the rest. Gosrin asked if he was sure he could do it alone. Grinning, the main character said that there weren't many of them left anyway. He thought that this Romulus might be a little annoying. Romulus was surrounded by a green aura and the other cultists prepared to fight. T-Sung jumped into the attack and told her to take care of the spheres. Putting his sword forward, Romulus ordered the heretic to be punished. One of the cultists swung a battle axe, finding himself next to the main character. The bald cultist on the other side swung his sword. T-Sung blocked the axe blow with his mace. Crouching, he dodged the sword strike. Cursing, he struck the cultist in the face with his mace. The mace appeared in front of the bald cultist's face. The main character, throwing him aside with a blow, told him to get out of the way. The guy behind him swung a huge axe. Turning around, T-Sung blocked the attack with his mace. Turning to the side, he saw a stream of green energy. There was a green explosion. The guy, blackened by the explosion, opened his mouth wide. The main character, using it as a shield, asked about his use of a wide area attack, the name of his subordinates. He asked if this was too much. Romulus, holding up his index finger, said that this is not something that should be said by a person who uses people as a shield. He said that he admits that he is strong, and he has a high level of battle sense and situational judgment, because even he himself is a difficult opponent to face alone. The main character asked with a grin if he was going to give up, because besides him, there were no more fighters left. Romulus grinned back. The ghostly silhouette reached out to the protagonist's throat, and Romulus asked when he saw that he was alone. T-Sung swung his sword and the creature dissipated. He frowned tensely. He thought it was a soul, or rather a ghost. The ghost was emerging from the body of the fallen cultist. Romulus said his name and said that he was a high priest of the great Osric cult and the Dark Priest. He said that the spirits of the dead are his strength. He said that as long as these corpses were on his side, he could not defeat him. He was surrounded by green ghosts. He said with an evil grin that he too would die and become his strength. The dialogue box says, Romulus, High Priest of the Osric Cult, level 55, human, named, Dark Priest, special ability, Shadow of the Dead. The ghosts rushed to attack. The main character ran away from them with a mace in his hand. He was approaching the steel door. Stopping, he turned around. T-Sung swung his mace at the approaching ghosts. The ghost's form exploded in the air. The ghost squinted and flashed his eye. 3 ghosts flew through the main character's body. He thought that his HP decreased every time it passed through his body. He wondered if it was a summoned debuff. Swinging the mace, T-Sung thought that physical attacks were useless, and if it took too long, he would not be able to win. Looking at the remaining time, he thought that he needed to end this situation as soon as possible. He looked away. Looking at Romulus, he wondered if his goal was to stall for time. Romulus had a sphere of energy in his hand, and he laughed and said that he would not be able to catch his wraiths with such flimsy attacks. Jumping forward, the protagonist asked if it was true. Using Smash, he said that he would just have to hit him then. Romulus blocked the attack with his sword and was thrown into the wall. Smirking, the main character asked about him blocking it. He asked if he would block this attack with his face. The sword in Romulus's hand was broken, and there was a mark on his face from the blow. Sending the ghosts forward, he shouted that he would kill him. Energy swirled around the main character. Romulus shouted to him thrash around all he wants. He said that he could not defeat him or prevent the disaster from being resurrected. The dialogue box says, achieve level 45. You can now use the new skill Flying Spur. Flying Spur throws a weapon at the designated enemy. A flash of bright blue light shot upward. Romulus looked up in shock. Raising his hand up, the main character said that this was divine punishment. He waved his hand. A flash of blue energy struck Romulus. Blood gushed from his mouth. The mace, leaving a blue mark, smashed one of the devices. Romulus sat in the tank of the device. The bloody mace, having left his body, began to move. The main character said that controlling it is not as difficult as he thought. The mace returned to his hands. He said that if he had known it was so easy, he would have used it sooner. He looked at the pillars, one of which had a yellow orb on it. Smirking, T-Sung said that now all that remains is to destroy this sphere. A stream of fiery energy hit the sphere. Gosrin, holding a flaming staff in her hand, thought that there were only 2 spheres left. Frowning, she mentally told herself to hold out just a little longer. The bald cultist, running up behind her, shouted at her to finally stop. Grabbing her shoulder, he told her not to interfere with their ritual. He grabbed her wound and she clenched her teeth. Biting her lip, Gosrin thought that there was little time left. 1 minute 20 seconds left. The main character threw a mace shrouded in blue energy. The mace, flying over their heads, hit the column with the sphere. The cultist exclaimed desperately. The protagonist threw both cultists aside by punching them. Shaking off his palm, he said that it looked like it was in a lot of pain. He asked if it was difficult for her to aim with a wounded shoulder. Grabbing her shoulder, Gosrin apologized for disturbing him. The lava returned to his hand, and Tisung said that there was no need to apologize, because, after all, she had to destroy the remaining sphere. Looking at the mace, he said that this skill is now on cooldown. Cooldown 3 minutes. He said that the sphere cannot be destroyed by normal attacks, so all they can do is put magic on it. Gosrin, eyes wide, looked at him silently. The main character, grinning, said that if he were in her place, he would at least try, because, regardless of whether he succeeds or not, time will continue to pass. Gosrin said she would try. Raising her staff, she told him not to blame her too much if she missed. 15 seconds left. Flames engulfed her staff. Gosrin, trembling, squinted. 10 seconds left. Tisung took her staff with her. Gosrin opened her eyes in amazement. 5 seconds left. The main character smiled. Gosrin looked at him in amazement in response. Frowning resolutely, he smiled. Screaming, they shot out a stream of flames. There was 1 second left and the fireball was approaching the yellow sphere. Romulus jumped, covering the sphere with his body. The fireball hit him, exploding. He shouted that his name was Romulus. The main character and Gosrin looked at him in amazement. Romulus shouted that he would bring disaster to this world. Behind him was a yellow sphere. The dialogue boxes say, time limit exceeded. You failed to prevent the revival of the boss monster. Destroyed orbs, 4 out of 5. Get ready. The boss monster will awaken soon. The huge sphere began to glow with a bright light. A bright light filled the room. The main character, gritting his teeth, said that he should have finished him off properly. He opened his eyes in amazement. The huge snake-headed monster, surrounded by yellow energy, opened its mouth wide. The dialogue box says, Disaster Eradication. Hidden Quest. Objective, defeat the revived disaster, Lightning Python. Defeat the boss monster. The monster wrapped its body around a stone column. Shrouded in electricity, it opened its mouth wide. Smiling nervously, the main character thought that these madmen, when they talked about resurrecting the disaster, meant Python. Squinting, he thought that it was smaller than he expected. Looking at the monster crawling among the flames, he thought that in ancient legends it was described as a giant snake that could wrap its body around a huge mountain and still have something left over. The monster's eyes flashed red, and Tisung thought that it looked big, but about 20 meters. The dialogue box says, Lightning Python. A monster resurrected through the evil experiments of the Osric cult. Level 70, Unknown Species, Boss Grade, Lightning Buster, Special Ability, Charged Breath. The main character thought that, besides this, he was only level 70. Gosrin said that it appears they were unable to fully resurrect it due to the destroyed orbs. He said that if they were up against level 70, they would still be better off running away. She asked the main character if they were going to fight it. Tisung apologized and said that he couldn't resist something so rare. He told her to run first because he would take care of it. Gosrin drank the yellow potion. Handing the potion to him, she said that these were potions for resistance to elemental attacks. She said it was a low-level potion, so it might not help much, but it was better than nothing. She stepped forward and the chief looked at her questioningly. Gosrin said that he is right, and since they have come this far, they cannot miss such a rare opportunity. Smiling, she said that she would protect him. She offered to fight until the very end. Tisung smiled back and agreed. Red eyes flashed. It rushed to attack, and the main character said that even if they died here, he would not take responsibility. Gosrin dodged by jumping up, and Tisung began to drink the potion. Stopping, he turned around. Surrounded by a yellow aura, he said that despite its size, it was surprisingly fast and they could afford to relax. The system reported an increase in resistance to elemental attacks to 50. The monster quickly rushed to attack. Shrouded in yellow energy, he hit the wall. The main character jumped up, surrounded by purple energy. Grinning, he said that he wanted to see how it would withstand a heavy blow. The dialogue box says, Fate's End decreases enemies' defense and magic resistance. Tisung raised 2 fingers up. The dialogue box says, Smash deals a heavy blow to the enemy. He swung his mace, sparkling with blue energy. He delivered 3 quick blows to the huge snake's body. The monster swung its huge tail. The main character dodged by jumping up. Noticing something, he clenched his teeth. There was a warning on the red dialogue that Python uses charged breath. Yellow energy gathered in the monster's mouth. Gosrin's staff was engulfed in flames. She shot flames into the monster's mouth. A stream of yellow energy flew over the main character. The monster's attack scattered stone debris around. Tisung fell to the floor and Gosrin asked if he was okay. Grabbing his head, he said he was barely able to dodge. Gosrin said it just sounded like a genuine cry of pain. The main character asked her to pretend that she didn't hear it. He opened one eye. Looking at the melted room, he thought that no matter how weakened it is, a hidden boss is still a hidden boss, and it certainly seems like its area attack is disaster level. Gosrin said that if it released another attack like this, the entire laboratory could collapse, so they needed to finish this quickly before it accumulated more power. The main character said that he agreed, but it didn't look like he was going to wait for them. The monster was surrounded by a yellow magical barrier. The dialogue boxes say, the python is protecting its body with a charged barrier. Magic resistance increased by 200. Its eyes flashed red. The dialogue box says, approaching the charged barrier will result in electrocution and paralysis. Tisung thought it was pouring mana into the charged breath, while reinforcing the barrier until it gathers strength again. He thought it was an annoyingly relentless pattern. Gosrin asked what they should do, because with this status magic will not work, and getting closer using melee attacks will cause paralysis. Smiling, the main character raised his finger and said that everything is not hopeless. Snapping his fingers, he said that this is when they should use debuffs. Iron weakness, health and mana of enemies are gradually decreased. A green magic circle appeared under the monster. Its red eyes bulged. The magical barrier crumbled, and its mouth opened wide. The dialogue boxes say, the python goes into a frenzy due to intense pain. The charged barrier has been lifted. Gosrin exclaimed that the barrier had been broken. Tisung said that no matter how high his magic resistance is, it will still feel the same fixed damage. Smirking, he thought, with the forced release of the charged barrier, it probably couldn't gather mana properly, and it must have lost a significant amount of HP too. Running to attack, he thought that this should be enough. Powerful yellow energy gathered in the monster's mouth. Electricity struck around it. The main character dodged falling debris and electrical shocks. Leaping forward, he struck the monster with his mace. Python swished his tail, shrouded in electricity. Chains made of blue energy appeared from the protagonist's hand. Speed regulation decreases the enemy's movement, attack and casting speed. Tisung asked if he thought he would fall for the same pattern again. Swinging his mace, he said that he was a stubborn python. A purple minus appeared on the monster's eye. A blue plus appeared on the main character's eye. Scorn of the strong. Increased damage dealt to opponents with higher levels. Decreased damage received. A blue flash flashed between Tisung and the monster. The main character grinned and his eye flashed blue. The system reported the completion of the Thwart the Osric cult's conspiracy quest. Tisung stood next to the corpse of a monster with a severed head. The dialogue boxes say, collect your rewards from the python's corpse. Level up, achieve level 46. The main character thought that he could get at least 2 levels, but only got 1. He thought how long it would take him to reach level 200. He thought the experience was disappointing, but the rewards were worth it. Gosrin called out to him from behind. She said that she couldn't believe that he really killed it. Tisung said that it was all thanks to Gosrin and she did a good job. Gosrin thought that this was a lie, and she was sure that he would have managed it alone without her help. Looking at the serpent's corpse, she thought that, even with debuffs, it would take 5 high-level players above level 70 to defeat this monster. The main character was sitting next to the serpent's body, and she thought that he was only level 45, and he managed to do it alone. Tisung called out to her and she apologized. Gosrin said she thought for a while. She asked if he wanted to check the awards. The main character turned around and said that before that they had one important problem. Gosrin said that, as expected, he was still hiding something. Tisung asked if she had rubber gloves. Gosrin looked at him in bewilderment. The main character said displeasedly that, no matter how you look at it, it looks like they will have to dismember the python's corpse in order to receive the reward. Gosrin said this is a really important issue. The dialogue boxes say, you have acquired python's scales, python's blood, python's flesh, python's bones, python's fang. Gosrin said that even after they selected only the best items, they only have so much. She said that big bosses are really worth the effort. Sighing, the main character said that the only problem is that they are huge. Gosrin asked about how he seemed unhappy with the awards. Gritting his teeth, Tisung thought that he had even dissected it, but the rewards were disappointing for the hidden dungeon boss. Opening his eyes, he thought that there was only one useful thing here. Python's core, a lump of energy that the lightning serpent python held within. It contains a large amount of light attribute energy. The main character thought that if he absorbed it, he wouldn't have to work so hard anymore. But there's only one thing here, so he can't split it. Gosrin looked at him questioningly. Coming down to the ground, Tisung said that he was a little embarrassed to say this, but Gosrin fulfilled its role. However, to be honest, he feels that he played a bigger role. As he passed her, he said that he could not afford to take all these awards for himself. He picked up Python's core from the floor, hiding it behind his back. He said that he would take only this insignificant Python's core, and she could take the rest. An awkward silence fell between them. Gosrin started laughing, and Tisung thought that, as expected, his hastily concocted plan didn't work. He asked why she was suddenly laughing. Gosrin said that the more she watches him, the more interesting he becomes. She said that he did not need to be so considerate, and, of course, he should take all the awards for himself. The main character looked at her in amazement. Gosrin asked if he remembered how they went on party hunts before. She said that she collected experience points and brought him rewards, and he could think of it as the same thing and not worry about it. Remembering the blue flash, she said that she felt like she was rewarded enough by completing this quest with him. Gosrin looked at the flash with an enthusiastic smile, and she said that it was the most rewarding quest she had been on, so much so that she would most likely never forget it. The main character wondered if it was so great. He said since she insists, there is nothing he can do. He thought that he didn't expect this to happen. Looking at the items in front of him, he thought that it wasn't that he didn't want it was just that it wouldn't fit in his inventory. He thought it might be better to share the rewards. Hamji asked if the time had finally come for him to come out. Tisung asked if he was trying to steal the leftovers. He said that he was hiding because when he opened the body, it stank in here. Hamji asked if he still doesn't understand why he is so incredible. He raised his arms above his head. He opened the fabric to reveal a blue space. He waved the white bag and told him to watch. The main character said indifferently that he was watching. Getting into different poses, Hamji said that this is his new magic, called Infinite Bag. Tisung lifted him off the ground and he screamed. He asked if this was a new skill he had learned. He said it was a very old-fashioned wrapping cloth. Hamji, waving his arms, demanded to let him go. The main character drew attention to the blue space in the bag. He asked in amazement what it was. Hamji, raising his head, said that he had never seen this either. The dialogue box said Infinite Bag, a magical bag summoned using Hamji's skill. It is an artifact of the spirit world that embodies the void of the world of nothingness. Since it is an item that embodies the void, the storage capacity is infinite, and Hamji can wrap this void bag around its back and store items within it. Tisung exclaimed in shock that it has infinite capacity. One of the problems that ordinary users often have trouble with is the limitation of their inventory space. Having this skill can solve it all at once. Taking Hamji in his hands, the main character exclaimed that he was finally earning his keep. Hamji said, when it comes to stealing the show, he's always ready. Tisung asked if he wanted some snacks since he would treat him today. The guy stepped forward. He said that it looked like they had actually defeated it. The main character and Gosrin turned around sharply. Tisung asked who he was. He thought that he had not felt his presence at all. The guy, laughing, told him not to misunderstand him because he was not their enemy. The main character exclaimed in amazement. The guy they met at the entrance grinned. Tisung asked indifferently about being the wounded guardian he met earlier. The guy squinted his eyes with a smile. Laughing, he asked about him still being in that form. He said he tried to make a big appearance, but now he's a little embarrassed. Looking at him with blue eyes, he said that, in any case, he was glad to see him. The main character looked at him tensely. The guy changed his appearance and asked if he was Han Tisung. Pointing a mace shrouded in blue energy at him, the protagonist asked who he was. The guy said that he would know if he used Rune of Insight. He said he was Chen Wu Jin. The main character shouted to him to name his identity right now. He asked why he knew his name. Catching his mace with his hand, the guy asked if he is the type who acts before he thinks. He said with a threatening expression that he himself knew that even with the Rune of Insight, he would not be able to verify his information. A whirlwind of green energy surrounded him, pushing the protagonist back. Tisung thought that he forgot for a moment that if the difference in levels is too huge, a person can hide his information. Wu Jin, looking at his palm, asked if he should have weakened his strength. The main character asked why such a strong guy like him came to him in disguise. He said that his goal couldn't just be to show off his strength to an ordinary level 46 player. Scratching his head, Wu Jin apologized and said that he himself acted before he thought. He said he didn't really have a reason and was just interested in him. Tisung asked about his interest in a small fry player like him. Wu Jin told him to be honest, he may be a small fry player, but he is not a normal user. Calling him Deus Only Disciple, he asked if it was true. The main character opened his eyes wide. Wu Jin said with a grin that he would get straight to the point. Tisung asked in amazement how he knew about this. Grinning, Wu Jin told him not to worry, because he is the only one who knows about Deus. Passing by him, he told him if he wanted to know more, come to Sinsadong and he would contact him separately soon. He turned around. Turning to Gosrin, he apologized for ruining their fun atmosphere. Gosrin silently looked at him with a blank expression. Wu Jin smiled. With a wave of his hand, he told them to enjoy the rest of their date. Clenching his trembling fist, the protagonist thought that his identity had been revealed, and that it had been done by someone incredibly powerful. Sweating nervously, he wondered if the other rankers knew about this, and he said that he was the only one who knew about Deus. But could he just believe his words? He wondered if it was possible that Genesis knew his identity too. With his eyes widening in fear, Tisung thought that he had just begun, but would it really end like this? Gosrin, approaching him, grabbed his face with her hands. Squeezing his cheeks, she said that she didn't know anything. She said that even if she heard something, she would not be interested, and she did not record any videos or screenshots. Smiling, she told him not to worry anymore. She said he had nothing to worry about. Hamji, appearing on her shoulder with a thumbs up, told him not to be afraid, because if anything happened, he would protect him. The main character looked at them, his mouth wide open in amazement. Smiling, he exhaled. He thanked them both. After exiting the hidden dungeon, the party with Gosrin and Hamji came to an end. She said she'll stay at the ruins for a while to focus on leveling up. The main character has not entered BNW since then. Lying on the pillow, he wondered if it was because of the anxiety that his information had been revealed, despite the fact that Gosrin and Hamji had reassured him. Sighing, he said wearily that he no longer understood anything. It's been 3 days since he logged in. There was a message on his phone screen, tonight, at midnight, Club Heaven in Sinsadong. Finechen Wujin, Sinsadong, Gangnam area. The full moon was shining in the night sky over the city. Looking at the phone screen, the main character said that this guy is also crazy. He asked why arrange a meeting at the club. Looking around, he said that it had been a long time since he wandered the streets at night, because he was always just playing games while others were having fun outside. He stopped. Looking at the Club Heaven sign, Tisung asked if it was here. He said it was his first time at the club. He asked if he would be turned away as soon as he reached the door. The security guard did not let him in for violating the dress code. The main character thought that he really wasn't allowed in. He thought that at least he was kicked out for violating the dress code and not for his appearance. Smiling awkwardly, he said that he was not here to party, only to quickly meet a person. He asked if he could quickly come in and come back out. The guard clicked his tongue in annoyance and Tisung said that it probably wouldn't work. The guy in the baseball cap asked what he was wearing sweatpants to the Club Heaven. The girl told him to shut up because he could hear him. The guy in the baseball cap, showing his middle finger, said if he heard it, he would show it to him. Chuckling, he told him to stop causing trouble and get lost. A vein bulged out of anger on the protagonist's face. Wu Jin, placing his hand on his shoulder, asked with a smile that he was here. He said he should have dressed better. The guard bowed and apologized and said that he didn't know that he was Wu Jin's friend. Wu Jin said that it's okay because he hasn't gone to clubs before. He asked about it being a little rude. He said, laughing, that if he were a guard, even he would want to beat him up. The main character asked if it sounded like he was telling him to listen to him. The girl, looking at Tisung, who was giving them the middle finger, said that he was very cool. The guy asked what this loser wanted to say that he knew Wu Jin. Wu Jin looked at him calmly. The girl asked what happened. The guy said they were finished and couldn't come to Sinsadong anymore. Records were spinning on the DJ console. People danced on the dance floor, surrounded by lights and music. 2 guards stood next to the door to the VIP room. Wu Jin, taking the bottle out of the ice, asked what he wanted to drink, Dom Perignon or Armand. He said with a smile that if he didn't like the champagne, he could prepare something else for him. Tisung said that even if he says it, he doesn't know what it is, and he still didn't come here to drink. Turning around, Wu Jin said that if he wants to dance, he can go ahead and dance. The main character irritably asked if he was deliberately trying to provoke him, since he himself called him here. Sitting down at the table, Wu Jin grinned and said that his reaction was funny, so he wanted to tease him. Tisung told him to just say who exactly he was. While pouring the drink into the glass, Wu Jin said that he has a lot to apologize for, including interrupting his last date, so he will tell him a few things. He asked if he remembered the person he disguised himself as. He said that in fact it was a real member who escaped from Osric Research Lab and soon died, and he is also one of the Guardians. The main character asked if he wanted to say that he pretended to be a dead comrade in order to deceive him. Wu Jin said that he has no excuse for this, because using a dead comrade is a betrayal of the Guardians. Turning to him, he said that it was worth it for him, and although he felt sorry for them, he did not regret anything. Tisung said that by this he means that he is Daos's only disciple. Wu Jin said that this is true, but his main reason is to confirm the power of a person who has a hidden class like him. Taking a sip from the glass, the main character said that he already knows that he is a hidden class. He exclaimed in amazement, and the drink poured out of his mouth. Woo-jin said that he also has a hidden class. The main character thought that he knew that he was not an ordinary guy, but another hidden class is still amazing. He said that he found out about him because he also has a hidden class. Woo-jin said with a smile that he learned about this thanks to the money, because hidden classes are not omnipotent. Taesung said it was strangely annoying. Woo-jin said that he doesn't need to worry about his information at all, because as he said earlier, even in reality, he understands that he is a little special, and no one knows except him. He added that even those Genesis guys, whom he fears so much, could not find out anything about the fact that he was a student of Deus. The main character irritably asked who is afraid of them. He asked what his hidden class was, since it wouldn't be fair if he knew everything about it. Woo-jin said that he couldn't tell him because he was still too weak to tell him everything. Taesung asked irritably if he was going to continue doing this. After lowering the glass, Woo-jin told him to become stronger. He told him to become stronger until he could calmly tell him everything. He said that he needed to live up to the name Disciple of Deus. Hamji, waving his hand, said that they had not seen each other for a long time. The main character asked if he caused problems while he was away. Hamji said that he is not a troublemaker, unlike him. He asked if he was done with his work in the other realm. Sighing, Taesung said that he was not sure. He thought that, after all, the thing with Woo-jin just sort of wrapped up without much discussion afterward. He remembered how Woo-jin suggested meeting again when he reached level 200. The protagonist wondered what his intentions were. Lowering his head, he thought, it doesn't seem like his goal is just to make connections with other hidden classes. Hamji asked why he came here. They ended up on the Red Street, and he told him that this is a shady and seedy place doesn't suit someone like him. He asked smugly if he felt frustrated. Taesung asked what he was talking about since this is not that kind of place. City of Pleasure, Dondajiri. This place is known for its abundance of adult contents, such as bars, gambling dens, and other entertainment venues within BNW. It's famous for allowing players to experience all kinds of pleasures in virtual reality. The main character thought that, of course, he came here only for the underground market. He said that he didn't intend to stay here long, and when he just got the items he got from the underground market and upgraded his equipment, he would go elsewhere. Hamji said it's boring. Taesung turned his attention to something ahead. He noticed two guys in long black clothes. He asked about them being from Genesis. A guy with dark hair asked someone if he knew who they were. Looking at them, the main character thought that these scoundrels from a prestigious guild were creating trouble even in such a place, and they're still up to their trashy antics. Frowning, he thought that he would like to squeeze them right away. He said it didn't matter. Hamji asked what happened and if he was scared. The main character asked who was scared. He asked if he avoids dung because it is scary. He said no, because he avoids it because it is dirty. As he walked past the Genesis guys, he said they were just someone they'd step on one day and it just wasn't the right time. He suggested we go and sell the items quickly. The guy with dark hair asked the man in blue clothes if he had heard the rumors, because they say that he has something good. The man was silent, and the guy asked what he wanted to check it out, but he didn't even listen to him. He asked if he was deaf. The guy with blonde hair said that even after several looks, something is still wrong and the rune of insight is not working as it should. He asked if he was suspiciously strong. The guy with dark hair sighed and asked if he was scared. He said that's why Chialgi keeps hitting him. He asked, what if this old man has a higher level? Smirking, he punched himself in the chest and said that they were from Genesis, and if he hurt them, it would be tantamount to war with Genesis. Looking at the crowd looking away from them, the guy said to look, because no matter what nonsense they say, no one stops them and no one gets in their way. He poked the man with his finger. He asked if he was so scared that he forgot how to speak. The fist hit the grinning guy hard in the face, knocking out several of his teeth. The main character's blow threw him aside. The guy was lying among the boxes, and the main character said that his scared talk made him angry. He shouted angrily that he had already said that he was not afraid. A guy with blonde hair grabbed his sword and asked if he could see their uniform. He shouted that they were from Genesis. After hitting the guy, Taesung shouted that this is why he hates him even more. The guy ended up on the ground next to his comrade, and the main character said, these guys are nobody without the name of their guild, but they still make noise. Hamji chuckled and said that it seemed like he couldn't help himself. Taesung said that if someone hadn't kept scratching beside him, he would have survived. Hamji replied that it looked itchy, so he just scratched it. Turning to the man, the main character told him not to worry too much, because these guys are naturally like that. The man remained silent in response, and the main character wondered if he really couldn't talk. Hamji asked if they weren't a very large guild and how he was going to deal with the consequences. Tisung said that, in any case, this is not PvP that is worth recording, and they certainly would not dare to raise their voice after they were beaten and left. Smirking, he said that they would simply leave after selling their items and doing maintenance. The man raised his hat thoughtfully. Intervention Hotel Dondajiri branch. The dialogue box says, "You have entered the training ground exclusive to the Intervention Hotel." The main character exclaimed that it was very spacious here. Hamji said that from the outside it looked very small. Tisung said that this is a service created for adventurers' maintenance and training, and although the board is quite expensive, it is worth it. He gave the command to Hamji. He jumped down and said that he knows without him saying. Yellow energy appeared in his hands. The dialogue box says, "Retrieve. Infinite bag activate." A bag appeared in his hands. The main character asked why he had to make so much noise when he took something out. Hamji told him not to underestimate his moment to shine. He asked why he bought other weapons, since his main weapon should be a one-handed blunt. Tisung, holding a mace in his hand, said because it is the cheapest and easiest to use, but it is not his main weapon. Looking at the dialogue box, he said that now it was time to select the main weapon. The dialogue box says, "You are about to reach level 50. Please choose your main weapon." There are 5 types of weapons available for the Debuff Master, including the Blunt Weapon Mastery, Spear Mastery, Greatsword Mastery, Gauntlet Mastery, Spear Mastery. The main character would prefer to use the blunt he used before, but he needs to try other weapons. He said, "Summon Shadow Boxer." A punching bag appeared in front of him. The dialogue box says, "Shadow Boxer," a special kind of sandbag with a fixed defense and infinite health. Putting the shield on his hand, Tisung asked if he should start with the shield first. He hit the punching bag with his shield. He struck several more times with his shield. The main character said that destructive power is not bad. The dialogue box says, "Battle time, 5 seconds. Total damage, 54-0. He said that DPS is too low. Tisung raised his sword. Swinging his sword, he said that he would try the greatsword. Hamji, sighing boredly, asked how long he was going to continue this, since 2 hours had already passed. Surrounded by various weapons, the main character was breathing heavily, holding a halberd in his hand. He thought that everything is ambiguous. Looking at the weapons lying on the floor, he thought that each weapon had its own advantages and disadvantages, but none of the weapons stood out as particularly good. He thought sadly that it looked like he would stick with the familiar and reliable one-handed blunt weapon. The man said that all this was useless. Tisung turned around and asked about him being that old man. He wondered how he got here, despite the fact that this is a private training facility. He wondered if this was Wu Jin's doing again. He asked who he was and if he was from the Guardians or if he was sent by that annoying guy. The man asked why he helped him and did not even ask for any reward. The main character asked in confusion what he was suddenly talking about. The man shouted loudly for him to just answer. After a short silence, Tisung said that it was not that he felt sorry for him. He said that seeing an old man not being able to resist people stronger than him reminded him of his past. Frowning, he said that he just didn't want to run away from his past anymore. Smiling, the man said that this was concise but solid reason. Throwing his hat in the air with one finger, the man said that his name was Shakiro, and from now on he would make him stronger. Shakiro, named NPC, Human, 354 level, Weapon Master, 5-star Heaven. Shakiro, a member of the 5-star Heaven like Beetlejuice, a martial artist who has reached the level of mastery, with the ability to freely wield 18 weapons. He's the man who carries the title Weapon Master. The hat fell to the floor, and the main character thought that how old Shakiro turned out to be, and it must have been his hat that prevented the rune of insight from working. Smiling nervously, he thought that, nevertheless, it's surprising to receive interest from Beetlejuice and now Shakiro. He thought that he should refuse him. Scratching his head, he said that he appreciated the offer, but he already had a master. Shakiro replied that he was aware of this, and the likelihood that a talent like him would not have a master was extremely low. He asked with a smile that the path of learning is not limited only to the relationship between master and student. He said that he seemed to be having difficulty with his main weapon and he could help him solve that problem. He said that he was asking him to become his student, and he could just treat him like an old man passing by who wanted to help a good junior. Tisung thought that this guy's persuasion skills were serious, but his words actually made sense. He wondered what would have happened if he had consulted his master about the weapon. Deus asked why use anything else if this body itself is a weapon. He said that such things are for puny fellows like him. The main character asked if he was going to tell him which weapon was best for him to solve the problem with his main weapon. Shikiro closed his eyes with a smile. Taking something out from under his clothes, he asked if he thought a man like him should be content with just one weapon. The main character opened his mouth in amazement. Shikiro said that starting from now on, he will be able to elevate all the weapons he can use to the level of his main weapon, Mejingjord, an item modeled after the belt worn by the god of thunder, Thor, in Norse mythology. Type: armor, belt, mythic grade. Special abilities: quick draw and sheathing, eternal bond, talent addition, skill sharing. BNW's item grades are composed of 8 tiers in total: normal, magic, rare, unique, legend, epic, myth, world. The highest grade, World, has not been confirmed to exist yet, so among adventurers the highest practically achievable grade is Mythic. Tsung asked in admiration that he was giving him a mythical level item, and not even as a loan. Shikiro said that there is no need to worry about this, because once equipped, it becomes a permanently bound item. Dropping to the floor, the main character said that, as he had said earlier, since he has a master, he cannot accept another master. Bowing low, he said that he respectfully bowed to the respected elder. Shikiro said that although he has received bows from students, this is the first time he has received a bow from a junior. Tsung looked up, thanked. He tried to take the belt, but Shikiro raised his hand. Saying he accepted, he tried to take the belt again, but Shikiro did the same again. Shikiro said, laughing, that it reminded him of raising puppies. The main character angrily asked if he was joking. Shikiro asked if he was trying to get results by skipping the process. He said, there's a world of difference between utilizing an item and relying on it. The main character said upsetly that he didn't just give it to him. He asked what he wanted him to do. Shikiro told him to follow him. The bald guy, swinging his morning star, broke his opponent's sword and dropped him to the ground. A man in dark glasses shouted into the microphone that the winner had been decided. The man raised his hands in the air and the commentator said that the winner was Miles, the Death Mace. Dondajiri, Gambling Arena. The main character, does he want to be involved in this? Shikiro said that, although Dondajiri's Gambling Arena has level restrictions for participation, it's still quite large in scale. As a result, it provides a good environment to experience various fighters. Tsung asked if he would have to fight against the fighters. Approaching the passage, Shikiro said yes, and that to improve his understanding of weapons, it would be more effective to train against people rather than monsters. Looking at the screen, the main character thought, it's true that practical experience is effective for honing one's senses, but does this have any meaning? There was a level 65 champion on the screen, and he thought that even if they say that the strongest person in this arena is stronger than him, they are still just NPCs with a slightly higher level. Throwing him an object, Shikiro told him to accept the gift. The main character asked what it was. An object consisting of white tentacles opened up. It grabbed Tsung's chest, and he, in shock, asked Hamji what it was. He asked if it was armor. He said that for armor it looks a little fragile. Shikiro said that, as they say, the more revealing the armor, the better. Turning around, he told him to go faster, because his turn would soon come. He told him not to use any skills or techniques and to fight only with his basic skills. Smirking, the protagonist said that in return, if he defeated the champion, he would take Mejingjord, as they had agreed. Shikiro said, laughing, that he was confident. Tsung thought that he was underestimating him too much, and he probably thought that it would be difficult for him if he gave him unfamiliar weapons and forbade him to use skills. He thought, with the experience of using various weapons in battles with Genesis, and the training from his master that made his level-dependent stats overpowering, this place is not an arena but a playground for him. As he entered the arena, he thought that he would quickly end this test and take Mejingjord for himself. A man in dark glasses stood in the ring under the spotlight. The commentator said that this is the moment they have all been waiting for. A new warrior has emerged to write a new story in this sacred arena. Pointing with his palm, he said that this was the skeleton warrior, the weakling man. The main character stood in shock under the spotlight. Blushing, he thought that this was very shameful. Aside from terrible naming sense, it's so outdated. Looking at Shikiro, he thought that this was definitely his doing. Shikiro said that, no matter how much he thinks about it, it's a good choice of name. Chuckling, someone told the protagonist that just by looking at him, you can see that he is as weak as his name implies. A humanoid mantis stood in the ring and asked if he could finish him off in one breath. Sticking out his long tongue, he asked whether he should slowly torture him. Maki, NPC, Mimic, level 37, Slaughter Scythe. Smirking, the main character asked who he thought he was talking to. Siegfried, Adventurer, Debuff Master, Human, level 46, Goblin Slayer, Beerman Territory Guardian. Leaping into the attack, Maki hissed and shouted, making him regret coming here. After blocking the attack with his sword, T-Sung said that he wanted to ask him something. Maki turned his head tensely. The main character, swinging his sword with a grin, asked when he breaks his insect-like mimic head whether the blood will be red or a different color. The dialogue box had a notification. Debuff armor is scanning the opponent's abilities. Scanning the enemy Maki is complete. Initiating nerf on the wearer. A strong discharge of electricity hit the main character's body. T-Sung fell to the floor and the commentator exclaimed that weakling who's been whining in his debut match has fallen to Maki's attack. With his eyes bulging, the main character thought what was happening, because his whole body seemed to be experiencing excruciating pain. And this could not be due to the attack of the mantis. He looked at the red light on his chest. Debuff armor, a magical armor that restrains the wearer. Armor, full body, legendary grade. Special ability, nerf. After scanning the wearer and the opponent's stats, the wearer will receive a 20% nerf and become weaker than the opponent as well as experience pain. The main character thought in shock about debuff armor. Maki said, laughing, that he didn't understand what was going on, but he looked pathetic. He said it was his turn to ask questions. T-Sung clenched his teeth in tension. Raising his sharp paw, Maki asked what color the blood would be if he cut off his head. He added that of course he already knew the answer. He rushed to attack, swinging his sharp hand. The main character clenched his teeth and veins bulged on his face. He dodged it, doing a backflip. Maki said he was lucky to get away with it. He asked if he could dodge the next attack. Raising his sword, T-Sung said, as if things aren't chaotic enough. Leaping into the attack, he told him to shut up and swung his sword. Maki blocked the attack with his hand. He said his attacks were too heavy. Throwing it aside, he asked what he expected to achieve by this. The system warned the main character that his current abilities are 20% lower than those of the enemy. He thought that not only was he in pain, but his body felt heavy and normally he would have dodged such an attack. Maki jumped into attack. And T-Sung thought that Shakiro must have a reason to do this to him, and it's not just about fighting with a penalty. Lowering his sweat-covered face, he said, "All right then." He stamped his foot forcefully. Swinging his sword, he said, "For now let's go back to basics." Looking at the ring, Hamji said that Master's condition doesn't seem great today. While munching on popcorn, he said that normally he would be able to dodge such attacks with his eyes closed. Shakiro asked if he was worried about his partner. Hamji replied that, on the contrary, he wanted to see how a master who always acts tough had properly beaten for once. Shakiro, grinning, said that it looks like he has a lot bottled inside. He thought it might be frustrating right now, but there was no better way to improve his understanding of weapons. Looking at the main character, he thought, in a situation where physical superiority and skills are sealed, finding the essence of the weapon. Smirking, Shakiro thought how he would overcome being in the position of the weak when he's always been in the position of the strong. Blood sprayed out and he opened his eyes in amazement. The main character cut off his opponent's hand. Maki froze in place, twitching in fear. Grabbing his severed hand, he screamed loudly in pain. Sighing, T-Sung said that it was harder than he thought. He asked if it was because it was an unfamiliar movement. With a pale face, he told the mantis that next time it would be his right hand. Cursing at him, Maki angrily shouted that he would kill him. He jumped into attack, and the commentator said that, in a surprising turn of events, the walking who couldn't regain his senses severed Maki's arm with a single blow, and Maki, who has lost his sanity, launches an indiscriminate attack. Leaning on the heads of the people in front, Shakiro thought in amazement, did he grasp the essence of the greatsword in that short time? Typically, a greatsword boasts great destructive power, but there's a high risk if the attack fails. Moreover, it's difficult to deal with Mantis' swift attacks with a weakened body due to the debuff armor. However, he is using the greatsword as a pivot, moving himself to neutralize the attacks while simultaneously exploiting the opponent's weaknesses, and all that with only minimal movements. The main character blocked another attack, and Shakiro thought that this is not a thing that anyone can understand, but a winning strategy born out of instinct and driven by an obsession for victory. Grinning, he thought he had met an incredible talent. He thought that perhaps a monster stronger than him had been born. Maki yelled at him to stop hiding behind his weapon and come out. T-Sung thought that Shakiro's intention was to cope with the situation by maximizing the use of the weapon. Perhaps that's why he weakened him to instill a sense of crisis. Eyes wide, he thought Shakiro had left something out. Remembering his past battles, he thought, to someone like him who has always fought from the position of the weak, utilizing everything around him to the extreme is just basic. Maki charged, raising his arm. He struck with his hand, but the main character in front of him disappeared. His hand pierced the chain link fence, fussily trying to get his hand out of there. He exclaimed that his hand was stuck. Tisung said that he warned him. Swinging his sword, he said that his right hand would be next. Swinging his sword, he cut off the mantis's second arm. Maki screamed, blood spraying. He fell to the floor of the ring. The commentator stood in the ring with a confused face. He said that, surprisingly, the weakling wins. Tisung wearily wanted him to finish quickly. The audience chanted his nickname. The guy asked if this guy did this to them. The guy from Genesis exclaimed that it was his face, and it really was him. The guy with dark hair sighed and asked about how they couldn't even resist this guy, and this happened to them. The guy with his hair in a bun said that this guy attacked them suddenly. The guy hit him in the stomach, not allowing him to finish. Angrily kicking him, he told him not to make excuses. Because of them, his dignity is ruined. The guy, screaming in pain, apologized to Chiolgi. After a short silence, Chiolgi suddenly apologized. Turning around, he, Genesis Guild member and Dondajiri VIP Club member, asked angrily that this guy looked familiar. Looking at the main character's picture on the dialogue box, he asked what the guy's name was, since his name couldn't be weakling. He was told that his name was Siegfried. Rubbing his chin, Chiolgi said he looks similar to the person he knows. The guy with blonde hair said that, according to rumors, but now together with that old man who cannot be identified using Rune of Insight. He asked what they should do. Chiolgi said that they have no choice but to take both of them down. The red-hooded man said that it might not be as easy as they think. After all, this old man is Shakiro from 5-Star Heaven. Chiolgi asked in amazement if he meant Shakiro, the legendary weapon master. The man in red said that he was watching the match and had previously thrown away his hat, which he had been using to hide his identity in the spectator seats. Chiolgi asked if he was sure that it was not his imagination. He said that the renowned Shakiro could not appear in such a place. The man said that he had heard that he was traveling the continent in search of rare treasures. He said that there is a saying, where Shakiro stays for long, there must be a treasure. Chiolgi, slamming his hands on the table, finished his thought and said that the fact that he is in the Dondajiri arena means that there is a treasure there. He asked about what he just said, that dealing with Shakiro won't be as easy as they think. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. Placing a cup of tea on the table, the man said that, strictly speaking, under normal circumstances, Shakiro would be invincible. He looked at Shakiro's smile. Smiling evilly under the hood, the man with white hair said that in this situation the story is completely different. The stars sparkled in the sky above Dondajiri Arena. The muscular guy waved his fist, and the main character ducked. Hachial, Dondajiri Arena champion, laughingly said that he was lucky because in just a week he would already be fighting with him. Pounding his fist, he said that he certainly did not know that this would become his grave. He dealt blows one after another, from which the main character dodged, moving back. Tisung said that he practiced boxing when he was little. Hitting him with his fist, he said that he didn't know anything else, but he was sure that it was called counter. Hachial suffered a concussion and drooled from his mouth. She fell to the floor behind the main character. The commentator exclaimed that the invincible champion had fallen and a new legend was born in Dondajiri. He announced that the winner, the new legend, was the weakling. One viewer said that the more he looks at weakling, the more interesting he becomes, because it always struggles at the beginning, but turns it around at the end. Another viewer added that it's not boring because he changes weapons every fight. The commentator, approaching the main character, said that he could not believe that he became the champion just a week after he appeared in the arena. He said it was really incredible. Handing him the microphone, he asked how does he feel about becoming the new champion. The main character raised his eyebrow thoughtfully. Smiling, he said that he wanted to retire. Intervention Hotel, Dondajiri branch. Tisung wore a yellow belt. The belt began to glow yellow. The dialogue boxes say, player Siegfried now owns Megingjord. Megingjord transforming to fit the user. Smiling, the main character thought that when he wears a mythical item, he feels his self-esteem rise. He wondered if this was the reason why people bought luxury goods. Shakiro said that, judging by the expression on his face, he liked it. He smiled and apologized for not being able to watch the final match. He congratulated him on the championship. Tisung said that for the great Shakiro these are small things. Shakiro, laughing, said that in the past he could not become a champion in such a short period of time as he did. The main character looked at him in amazement. Shakiro said that although it was over 100 years ago, this was the first time he had picked up a sword. The main character said that he also came from an arena background. Shakiro said that the situation was different then, and in those days he picked up a sword just to survive. Turning around, he said that compared to then, today's arena is more like children's games. Hamji was sleeping on the table and Taesung asked if he was staying in Dondajiri because of the arena. Shakiro said that he came here for a different reason. Turning around, he asked if he could give him some of his time. The sky over the city was painted in evening orange tones. Shakiro said they have arrived. Dondajiri, city of pleasure, forgotten abandoned mine. The main character said that he did not know that there was such an abandoned mine on the outskirts of Dondajiri. He asked why they came here. Shakiro said he may have heard of 3 famous families. Walking along the rails, Taesung asked if there was anyone on this continent who didn't know about Bimerian, Autonica, and Mercedes. Shakiro asked if he knew there was a special branch in the Bimerian workshop. The main character asked if he was talking about the Home of Death. The Home of Death, a special department in the Bimerian workshop dedicated to manufacturing ultra-high performance weapons. There's a theory that the strongest weapons in the Nurburg continent were mostly made there. Taking a torch in his hand, Shakiro said that in Home of Death there was the most outstanding craftsman of all time. His name was Herbert. He was famous as a blacksmith who was more crazy about weapons than any other blacksmith in history. To put it simply, he even learned how to draw because he wanted to leave a painting where a weapon he made killed a human being. The main character said that this is pure madness. Shakiro said that he created over 100 deadly weapons in his life, and in his later years he began creating the ultimate weapon of destruction that would become his masterpiece. Taesung asked if a piece of his posthumous work was kept here. Shakiro said that, to be precise, this is a piece of a treasure map leading to his posthumous work. He said that according to his information, the treasure map was torn in half and scattered, and one is missing, but the other is definitely here. Walking through the mine tunnel, they said that the reason he stayed in Dondajiri was because he went to the black market to get this information. He said he then created a relationship with him, a person who helped him resolve a difficult situation. The main character said that he was ashamed of showing off his power in front of Shakiro. Shakiro said that while he was in the arena, he received information that a piece of the treasure map was here. He said that now all he had to do was find it. He stepped forward. There was a drop down in front of them. The main character, looking down, thought that it was getting brighter here. Moreover, this was a wide space. The paw of a red monster covered in steel appeared from the ground. Monsters roamed the mine, growling. The system reported that they had entered the dungeon. The monsters looked at them, and Shakiro, grinning, said that there were a little more of them than them. The main character exclaimed that this is not a little, it is a lot. He said that he didn't even initially say it was a dungeon. He said that it was level 150, and if he risked his life and went to fight, he might not be able to handle this monster. The dialogue box says, Chimera 154, a monster created by combining the bodies of several monsters using elaborate mechanical devices. As it is an artificial life form created solely for slaughter, it is an extremely dangerous monster. Level 150, race, complex, chimera, grade, general. Shakiro told him not to worry about it, because no matter how brilliant he is, he won't ask him to do such an unreasonable thing. Energy gathered in the monster's mouth, and the main character said worriedly that he seemed to need to look ahead. Shakiro asked with a grin, haven't he been able to grow because he's been in the arena for the past week because of him? As he unsheathed his sword, he said that it looked like he needed to take responsibility too. He swung his sword and the monster was cut into pieces. The system informed the main character several times about the level increase. Taesung wondered in amazement if he had brought him here to try and help him. Shakiro said that from now on, he will break through them. Shrouded in a green aura, it told him to follow him and not die. Swings of the sword, leaving a green trail in the air, cut the monsters into pieces. The sword in Shakiro's hands flashed with a green flash. Many dialogue boxes informed the main character about his level up. Looking at his palms, he thought that he had raised 2 levels at once. Smirking, he thought that even if he got carried by rankers, he would never be able to gain that much experience. And this ride is an airplane, not a bus. Looking around, he wondered how much money he could get for the corpses of these chimeras. He thought that if he had known something like this would happen, he would have taken Hamji with him. 2 dialogue boxes appeared in front of him. The dialogue boxes say, you have reached level 50. New skills were acquired. Proof of existence, deals 20% additional damage to debuffed enemies. Rubbing his chin, Taesung thought that it increases his damage against debuffed opponents, and with this he will be able to defeat enemies with an even higher level. Looking to the side, he thought that he wanted to try it out. Looking at the little monster, he thought, isn't someone that cute worth a try? Letting off steam, the monster began to rise above the ground. A shadow hung over the main character. The dialogue box says, Chimera 7, a chimera capable of physical transformation. It is a clever monster that uses its cute appearance to distract and attack its opponents. A giant monster stood in front of the main character. Shikiro raised his sword. He swung his sword and a wave of energy tore the monster in half. He said that if he relaxed, judging the opponent by his appearance, he would suffer seriously. The main character said he still has a long way to go. Shikiro said they are already making progress on this. He asked if he had achieved anything. T-Sung, looking at the fist shrouded in blue energy, said that he had grown more than a week's worth of training, and thanks to this, he had also gained new skills. Shikiro said that he must have grown up enough then. He said all they had to do was find the treasure. The main character said that he had been curious about something for a while now. He asked if he wasn't famous for owning 18 mythical weapons. He asked why he uses such simple weapons. Shikiro had a standard blade in his hand. Shikiro asked if that's what he meant. Smiling, he said that he did not need them, so he gave them to his students. T-Sung asked in shock that he gave all these great weapons to his students, and that he even had students. Shikiro said that, as he got older and moved around in his life, it was difficult to make friends, so he embraced students, and he has no idea what they are doing now. He asked if it was not normal for a teacher to want to provide something good for his students. The main character looked at his belt. He said it didn't make sense. He asked if he had no greed for weapons. Why was he looking for Herbert's remains? He asked in shock if he really just wanted to give it to him. Shikiro asked if he was unhappy with his Megingjord. He said that finding Herbert's posthumous works is just a hobby, and he enjoys the adventure of finding the treasure rather than the treasure itself. T-Sung said that he seems to value the process more than the result. Shikiro, laughing, asked if it wasn't more romantic. They walked through a large underground room. They then walked through the mine tunnel. They stopped. In front of them was a huge double door with a pattern. The main character thought it was a stone gate with the letter M engraved on it, symbolizing home of death, and there are certainly clues to Herbert's posthumous work here. Touching the gate, he thought, it's strange that it's out in the open without any locks or spells. He wondered if there was a trap there. T-Sung asked what they should do since it seemed dangerous to go inside. Blood gushed from Shikiro's mouth. Coughing, he fell to the ground. The main character asked if he was okay, because he was bleeding. Shikiro, breathing heavily, said he was fine. Looking at his bloody palm, he said it was a long-term illness and he had occasional seizures, so there was nothing to worry about. T-Sung exclaimed that this was why he was coughing earlier. Someone asked if it's true that all the Shikiros in the world die. The main character turned around. Chialgi asked if they were the ones who cleared the road. He said they made it easy to come here. Grinning, he thanked them. Chialgi, Adventurer, Lance Master, Human, 78 level, Dondajiri Arena VIP, Sneaky Hunter. Chialgi asked if Shikiro was the dying old man. Looking at the main character, he said that he was the one who defeated the champion in the arena. The main character said that his name is Siegfried. Chialgi said that he is the same lunatic who muddied the waters in the arena and announced his retirement as soon as he became champion. He asked about what, in addition to this, he harmed his subordinates. T-Sung asked if he wanted to even the score. Approaching him, Chialgi said that what happened to these fools was none of his business. Looking the main character in the eyes, he asked if he knew him. The main character asked what he was talking about, since this was his first time seeing him. Chialgi rubbed his chin and said that no matter how he looked at him, he was as disgusting as Han T-Sung. Squinting his eyes, the main character thought how he could not know him. Choi Chialgi. When the fight between T-Sung's Beamer Guild and Genesis began, the guild funds were stolen by a traitor who set fire to the hideout and ran away. He must have incited the remaining guild members to switch sides as well, because he's such a despicable person. Passing by him, Chialgi told the Nari mercenary that he would check this door and he could take care of him. Sighing, the main character mentally told himself to calm down, because now was not the time to let anger get the better of him. He thought that Chialgi was not a threat to him right now. Eyes widening, he thought that the problem was with the man in the red hood opposite him. Looking at him, T-Sung thought that he was hiding his identity, but he could feel his incredible strength. And this guy was most likely the reason why he did not notice that someone was following Shikiro and him. Looking at the enemy shrouded in a red aura, he thought he won't stand a chance against him right now. He thought that the only thing he could do was stall for time until Shikiro recovered. The main character called out to them. He asked if it was okay for a Genesis guild to do this, and if the guild would remain silent even if they did something like that. Chialgi asked what he was talking about. T-Sung said that he can understand that Genesis is struggling in this town just by looking at them. He said that he felt like he had been demoted from the guild. Smirking, he asked why should they care about a spoiled scoundrel. Chialgi turned around and angrily asked what he just said. Something flew near the main character's face, leaving a cut on it. He turned around in amazement, and Chialgi was right in front of him. He threw it into the air with one hand. Tsung was thrown aside, kicking up a cloud of dust as he fell. Shikiro called out to him loudly. Nari asked Chialgi to calm down, because this was just a provocation to stall for time. Chialgi told him not to give him orders. The main character got to his feet and Chialgi said that he would kill him. Gritting his teeth angrily, he said that he would do it himself. He began to walk towards Tsung, stretching his arms. Nari said that it looked like he wouldn't need his help. Chialgi said that he needs to keep an eye on this old man so that he doesn't do anything stupid. Smiling evilly, he said that he would kill him himself. Wiping his face, the main character thought that Chialgi's character had not changed at all, and thanks to this, he was not in a worse situation. Nari sat down next to Shikiro and Tsung thought that the relationship between the red-hooded man and Chialgi was purely based on money, and there was no loyalty between them. As he rose to his feet, he thought that if he could kill Chialgi and negotiate a larger reward, he could avoid future confrontations. He figured that if things didn't go his way, at least he could buy more time for Shikiro to recover. Chialgi said that he still doesn't seem to understand the situation. Leaping into the attack, he swung his fist shrouded in purple energy and asked how dare he ignore it. He swung his spear and Tsung dodged it, moving to the side. Chialgi clutched the handle of the spear in his hand. Turning around, he swung his spear wide once more. He asked about the fact that he dodged it. He said it looked like he won the arena title by more than just luck. The main character thought, Lancemaster Chialgi. Looking at him, he thought that his specialty was to surround the tip of his spear with mana and perform wide-range attacks. His eye began to glow blue, and he thought that, however, he's still no match for him. He grasped the handle of the weapon that appeared in his hand. The system reported the activation of Mejingjord's special ability, Quick Draw. Chialgi had difficulty blocking the protagonist's fast attacks. Gritting his teeth, he wondered where he got his weapon from. Moreover, why someone who was only level 50 could use such a strong attack. He stamped his foot and swore loudly. Hitting with a spear, he told him not to get too cocky. Tsung blocked the attack with his shield. Chialgi asked in amazement when he did this. The main character activated Quick Sheathing, and the shield on his hand disappeared. He activated Quick Draw and a mace appeared in his hand. He quickly used these skills, attacking with different weapons one after another. Chialgi desperately thought that he was changing weapons too quickly and he couldn't even counter. The main character swung his big sword, and Chialgi wondered if he was hiding his powers. Tsung hit him with the sword, and he was thrown into the air. Shikiro, looking at him, thought that he had an incredible ability to adapt, and not only would he be able to take advantage of Mejingjord by using it for the first time, but he would also not allow his opponent to counterattack. He thought that, as expected, his eyes were correct. Nari said that soon he will become a master who will surpass them. Smirking, he said that he had taken on an interesting guy as an apprentice, and it must have been a lot of fun watching him grow up. Shikiro seriously told him that if he even laid a finger on him, he wouldn't just leave it. Nari clicked his tongue and asked if he still didn't understand what situation he was in. He said that if he wanted, he could kill them both right now. He asked if he didn't understand why he was leaving them alive. Shikiro asked if it was because of Herbert's masterpiece. Nari said that he will ask him directly. He asked where the remaining pieces of the map leading to his posthumous work were. Closing his eyes, Shikiro said that he would tell him where the remaining map was. Looking at him, he said that he had one condition. The main character activated Quick Sheathing. He thought it was Mejingjord's special ability. As he touched it, he thought that since he was not yet used to it, it might become much stronger once he got used to it. As he left, he thought that he was done with Chialgi anyway. Chialgi was bleeding from his mouth and asked about the 30 levels difference between them, but he was still overwhelmingly defeated. He said it was cheating and there could be no other explanation. Tsung thought that he wielded his sword with the intent to kill him. He wondered if he was strong after all. Chialgi shouted to the mercenary to kill them both. The main character asked about him changing his words because he was worried about being hit. Nari said he refuses. Chialgi and Tsung looked at him in amazement. Chialgi asked what he meant. He shouted at him not to joke and quickly kill them. He shouted that he had already given him a lot of money during all this time. Nari said that his goal is not money, but Herbert's legacy. He said that he was his mercenary for a while only because, by borrowing the name Genesis, he could work without being disturbed by anyone. Chialgi asked if he wanted to say that he doesn't mind becoming Genesis' enemy now. Nari, taking off his hood, said that when he finds the map, he will immediately return here. Smirking evilly, he asked if he really thought he didn't know that he was a dog thrown out of Genesis. Chialgi opened his mouth in shock. He remembered how he hit the table and asked what they were talking about. He asked that they want to send him to Dondajiri. He asked what they could do on a street like this. The man with a receding hairline said that he could not do anything. It looked like an order from the guild leader. He said that he would provide him with enough money and he could spend his time there relaxing and gambling. Chialgi cursed and said that if he had known that he would be treated this way, he would not have come to Genesis. He asked if they knew how much money he had invested in this guild. The man, picking his nose with his finger, said that this was not initially his money but the Beamer Guild budget. Chialgi exclaimed that now was not the time to play with words. The man asked why he still couldn't understand. He said he should have just stayed there. Clutching the spear in his hand, Chialgi said that he was not thrown. He shouted that he should not be in such a place. He hit the ground with purple energy. Gritting his teeth, the main character thought that this psycho was trying to destroy this entire place, and he's really lost it. Chialgi swung his spear with a shout. He swung his spear, releasing a wave of purple energy forward. The main character dodged, ducking. Pushing off the ground, he jumped forward. He left a blue trail in the air, and Chialgi swung his spear. Tisung hit him hard in the face. He thought that he didn't care what his story was. He was just a traitor who made him shed tears of blood. Catching the spear in his hand, he thought that he could not imagine how painful it would be to be wounded by an axe that he trusted. Swinging his spear, he mentally told him to try too, being hit by his own weapon. Flying Spur throws a weapon at the designated enemy. He threw a spear at Chialgi. The spear pinned Chialgi to the wall, scattering stone debris. The system reported that Chialgi died. He disappeared into thin air. There was a chest behind the destroyed wall in the room. The chest glistened with light. The dialogue boxes say, "Congratulations on clearing the dungeon. You received reward items." The main character said that this is a treasure map on which the location of Herbert's posthumous work is marked. Nari told him not to even think about it, because this treasure map belongs to him. Tisung asked that he also came here for the treasure map. Shikiro told him to back off and give him the card. The main character turned around. Shikiro said about long silver hair, pale skin, and this bloody disgusting magical power. He said he was a red cardinal. Nari asked if it was not an honor that Shikiro recognized him. Tisung asked if he knew him. Shikiro said that he is Heresy Inquisitor of the Osric cult, a highly skilled person who has reached the master level. He told the main character that this was not someone he could handle. The main character thought that this meant that he was from the same cult as the guys who resurrected Python at the Sohoka ruins. Nari, opening the chest, told him to consider himself lucky because, thanks to the conditions that Shikiro offered, he would spare his life. Tisung asked what he meant by conditions. Shikiro said that he decided to give up the card because there is no greater treasure than life. The main character thought that this was unpleasant, but it was true. With Shikiro's current physical condition, it would be difficult to deal with someone of the level of a master. Frowning, he looked down and thought that he was too weak. Nari, holding a piece of paper in his hand, said that the words about the value of life are ugly, but wise. Standing in front of them, he asked Shikiro where the rest of the map was. Shikiro said that, unfortunately, he doesn't know either. He said that he knew a way to find out their location. Nori asked how is that? Shikiro said that there is a magic spell on this treasure map, and if you solve the spell, you can resonate with the remaining map pieces and confirm their location. Red magic enveloped the card, and Nari said that he knew how to unravel the spell. A hand of red magic presented Shikiro's card. Nari said that he couldn't wait long. He said that he himself understands what will happen if he does something stupid. Shikiro silently looked at the card in his hand. He sighed. He then closed his eyes and was surrounded by yellow energy. A yellow magical compass appeared in the air above them. With his mouth wide open, Tisung thought that this was exploration art. Nari exclaimed that he can barely put high-level magic on such a crude map, and Herbert is as eccentric as he has heard. He said to tell him the location of the remaining treasure map. Yellow energy from the cards surrounded the main character. The dialogue box says, "You now own half of the treasure map." He looked at the dialogue box that appeared in front of him, and the system told him to complete the map. Shikiro and Nari looked at him in amazement. Tisung looked at the treasure map piece in front of him in shock. A year and a half ago, two muscular men lay on the ground. Chialgi said that he went through all the trouble, but the only rewards are these antiques. Jinwoo told him to calm down because this isn't the first time this has happened. Chialgi said irritably that this was why he said they shouldn't go on small-scale raids. The main character apologized and said that he would never have thought that the rewards would be so bad. Noticing something, he asked what it was. Looking at the piece of paper in his hand, he said that it was a piece of map. He asked Jinwoo if he knew what it was. Jinwoo exclaimed that it was trash and told him to throw it away quickly. Looking thoughtfully at the card, Tisung said that, Judging by the subtle mana, it did not seem to him that it was an ordinary piece of paper. He decided to keep it for himself. Looking at the piece of the map, he remembered that he left it without even thinking about it. But it turns out that it is a piece of a posthumous treasure map. Shikiro asked how this happened. The main character said that he got it in a bandit's lair a long time ago, but he didn't even know that it was a treasure map. Nari angrily asked Shikiro how this treacherous snake dared to deceive him. Two magical red hands struck at them, but Shikiro blocked one of them with his sword. The magic hit the main character in the chest. He was thrown into the wall and Shikiro called out to him. He told Nari to calm down as they seemed to have a misunderstanding. Nari asked if he thought such an excuse would work now. Holding up 2 fingers, he said that this was not a negotiation to begin with. The system reported the activation of the blood barrier. Use of warp and return scrolls will not be possible anymore. Shikiro asked in amazement when he managed to install this barrier. He said it seemed like he had no intention of letting them go from the start. Nari replied that it was true. Surrounded by red magic, he said that no matter how old he was, fighting someone of his caliber required at least this kind of preparation. The main character was pinned to the wall, and Nari said that his talent would one day become a threat to the cult, and it would be better to nip it in the bud right here and now. Shikiro said that only he would die here. He cut through the red magic with swings of his sword, leaving behind a yellow trail. T-Sun fell to the ground. Nari thought, how did he get rid of his hardened blood so easily? Shikiro was right in front of him before he knew it. Having dealt him many quick blows with his sword, he found himself behind him. Nari thought, as expected from Chenwu Jin, even though he is on the verge of death, if it weren't for his armor, he would already be dead. Shikiro said it's not too late. Standing behind him, he said that if he broke the barrier and retreated, he would spare his life. Nari, grinning, told him not to get cocky with a surprise attack like that. Red energy surrounded him and he said that he hadn't even started yet. Taking the cloth off the weapon basket, Shikiro said, that's a shame. Swords and various weapons rose into the air, surrounded by yellow energy. Surrounded by various weapons, he said that he hadn't drawn all his weapons yet either. Nari agreed and said that this was a terribly delicate magical power. He asked if he would be okay with such ordinary weapons. Shikiro, frowning darkly, told him not to worry because he would die from these conventional weapons. He ran to attack towards the red magic. With a few swings of his sword, he cut the magic into fragments. Pushing off the ground, he jumped forward. Shikiro repelled the red magic with his axe and sword. Running his finger over the magic, Nari gave it a solid shape. He blocked the attack with the weapon he had just created. The clash of their forces caused the ground to crack under their feet. Looking at Shikiro, the main character thought about effortless and precise movements. Shikiro swung his sword, and T-Sun thought that every move from this technique was deadly. As he watched them fight, he wondered if this was Shikiro's real skill. Frowning, he wondered what if the battle continued like this. Looking at the cracked sword and axe in Shikiro's hands, the main character thought, with such ordinary weapons. Nari, making attacks, said that it was a shame, because the situation would have been different if he had not given all his weapons to his students. Shikiro waved his weapon and asked what he was trying to say. Nari's weapon was enveloped in red energy. Using blood guillotine, he said what he meant was that he would eventually die due to his pathetic hypocrisy. He struck with force with his weapon. Shikiro's weapon was covered in deep cracks. A cloud of dust rose above the ground. Nari thought that he didn't feel the cut. Mace was approaching his face, and he thought that he had managed to dodge at the last moment. It hit him on the head. He gritted his teeth and Shikiro said that this might be pathetic hypocrisy. Frowning, he said that, however, that hypocrisy could change the world. Weapons in the air glowed yellow. All the weapons were aimed at Nari, and Shikiro said that he still had a lot of weapons left. Surrounded by red energy, Nari shouted that he would make sure to destroy all of his weapons. Shrouded in auras, they screamed as they attacked each other. Shikiro's weapons rushed to attack Nari's magic. The red energy destroyed the weapons one by one, and Nari mentally counted to 15. Kneeling down, he thought that, apart from the weapon Shikiro had been holding from the beginning, there was only one weapon left. The sword in Shikiro's hand broke in half. Nari, laughing, rushed to the attack and said that all his weapons were broken. He told him to stop fooling around. Shikiro said that he seems to be mistaken about something. He asked when he said that he only had 18 weapons. Nari asked in amazement that he had more weapons. After stabbing him with a spear, Shikiro said that this was for emergencies. Upon landing, he said that it seemed his blood had thinned quite a bit. He said that now his energy must be starting to drop. Using the Shikiro-style spear technique, he suggested ending it. Nari turned around, eyes wide. Using Island Enclosure, third form, Shikiro slashed with his spear, leaving a trail of yellow light behind him. Blood gushed from Nari's mouth and he wondered if he had a secret weapon. Circles of yellow energy surrounded the tip of the spear. Activating his second form, Sekiro struck several times with his spear. He activated the first form. Nari frowned. The spear, shrouded in yellow energy, was right in front of his face. Sekiro used zero form and a powerful beam of energy hit the ground. The flow of force threw stone fragments aside. The main character thought it was an incredible destructive force, like a railgun. Looking at Sekiro standing on Nari lying on the ground, he thought that this was Sekiro's secret technique. Holding the battered spear in his hand, Sekiro thought that the old weapons would not be able to withstand it. Breathing heavily, he wondered how long it had been since he last had an intense battle. He thought that the Red Cardinal was indeed a very strong opponent. Nari said about his weapons, and Sekiro opened his eyes in shock. Nari asked with a wide smile if all his weapons were broken. Red energy swirled around them. The main character called out to Sekiro. The dialogue box says, "The Master Hand quest has been activated. Defeat the 7 descendants of the 8 strong men who dominated the continent 500 years ago, excluding your master, Deus, descendant of Vajra the Thunder God, descendant of the Sword Saint Murcielago, descendant of the great sage Ziggurat, descendant of the Blood Demon Berserk, descendant of Pope Mogris, descendant of the Fran Palace Wind Force, descendant of King Brow." Tisung thought, isn't this the same quest he received from his master? Nari's appearance changed and he was surrounded by red energy. Vladimir, NPC, human, level 301, Osric cult, heretic inquisitor. Vladimir grinned, and the dialogue box said, descendant of Blood Demon Berserk who once drenched the continent in blood. The main character remembered how Deus said that in the past there were 7 formidable warriors whom he wanted to defeat, but now they are all gone. However, each of them probably had a successor before dying. He told him to defeat these descendants with the techniques he created. Looking at Vladimir, the main character wondered if this guy was one of the successors the master was talking about. He thought that, judging by this vicious mana, Sekiro was in danger. Closing his eyes and gritting his teeth, he thought about what he could do in this situation, when it was hard for him to even breathe. Vladimir, sighing, said that he did not want to turn into this. It's too taxing on his body and not particularly elegant. He told Sekiro that he made him turn into a monster. Sekiro asked if he received this evil power from the Osric cult. Vladimir, approaching him, said that he received it from the Great One, and he was not yet accustomed to this power, but it should be enough to kill him. Smirking, he said, his death alone won't be enough to pay off for making him angry. He said that he would cut off his head and the head of his disciple right here and hang them at the entrance of the arena. He exclaimed, Master and disciple, the champions of the arena, wandering that place as ghosts. Raising his head up, he exclaimed that this would be a wonderful picture. Sekiro hit him with his palm glowing yellow. Vladimir said that his bare-handed attack was pathetic. Pinning him to the ground with his foot, he asked if he was angry that he would kill his student. Sekiro said it looks like he's wrong. Blood dripped onto the cracked ground, and he said that he had never called him his disciple. Rising with difficulty, he said that his master was a greater being far beyond him. Vladimir, frowning, asked if he was still resisting. A magic circle appeared below them and Sekiro told him that he couldn't even imitate it. He exclaimed what a wonderful technique this was. Vladimir, gritting his teeth, asked what this unpleasant force was. Turning his attention to the main character, who was shrouded in electric and green energy, he wondered what he was doing. Fate's End decreases enemies' defense and magic resistance. Iron weakness, health and mana of enemies are gradually decreased. Sekiro asked the Red Cardinal with a grin where he should look. Yellow energy swirled in the air above him, and he asked if he had forgotten that his opponent was him. Vladimir drew attention to the broken weapons. Fragments of weapons were spinning in a whirlwind of energy. Sekiro's eyes flashed yellow and he told him to brace himself because this was his last blow. He used Sekiro-style ultimate righteousness. He used Rain of Blossoms, shooting out chunks of yellow energy. Vladimir screamed, his mouth wide open. A burst of yellow energy enveloped him. The system reported that the blood barrier had been removed. Rain of Blossoms. In the past, Sekiro discovered it in an ancient ruin and, the final product of long-term research and development, it is both the culmination and the guide. It looks like countless flower petals falling as various weapons come together in harmony. People commonly refer to it as flowers blooming on the battlefield. Vladimir's body was covered with swords, as was the ground around him. Smirking, he said that he would have thought he still had one ace up his sleeve. He said he lost. Sekiro was breathing heavily, and Vladimir said that he didn't want to imagine what would have happened if he had better weapons. Looking away, he said that it was quite poetic. He said that he remembers his technique. The main character looked at him, frowning, and Vladimir said that he heard that they're labeling the person who disrupted the cult ceremony at the Sohoka ruins as someone who casts debuffs, and it was his doing. Shrouded in red energy, he said that not only did he interrupt the ceremony, but now he was also interfering in his fight. After he disappeared, he said that he would kill him someday. Gritting his teeth, Tsung said that he still had the strength to escape. He ran to Shikiro, who fell to the ground. Shikiro said that it was a very cool trick and he was able to win thanks to it, but he needs to become stronger in the future. He said that he was now the target of not only the Red Cardinal, but also the Osric cult. The main character shouted that now is not the time to worry about him, because he needs to get treatment as soon as possible. Shikiro's face began to show glowing cracks and he said that he knew his body well, and it would soon collapse. He said that he was just forcibly clinging to a body that should have collapsed long ago. He handed him 2 books. Shikiro said that this is a manual containing all his martial arts techniques. He said that, compared to his master's skills, it falls far short, but it's still useful in its own way. Tsung shouted that for him he is also like a master, so he cannot die, because he must lead him further. Shikiro's gaze became empty, and he no longer heard his voice. He remembered how the arena commentator shouted that a new champion had been born in Dondajiri, and his name was Shikiro. The bald man told him, who would have thought that prickly Shikiro would have grown so much. He congratulated him. Shikiro said he didn't know who he was, but thanked him. The bald man said that they have been living the life of warriors together for over a decade now, and time flies quickly. They walked down the street together, and he asked if he had any plans for the future, since he had become free, having received the privileges of a champion. Smiling, Shikiro said that first he would go on an adventure, travel the world and experience new things. He added that finding something like treasure would be great. He said he plans to take on students, and lots of them. The bald man asked that he, the man who took upon himself all the loneliness of this world, would now accept students. He asked if there was a reason for this. Raising his palm to the sky, Shikiro said that he knows his limits well, and he cannot be the strongest. He said that if he had several students, he would like at least one of them to become a hero who would change the world. Clenching his hand into a fist, he said that he was planning on putting everything on the line for that disciple. The cave glowed with yellow particles floating in the air. Shikiro, crumbling into these particles, told the main character that he considered him his student. Looking at him, he said with a smile that he would bet on him. The main character sadly watched as he disintegrated in the air. Brave New World. Although it's referred to as another world, it's a virtual world created by Hive. NPCs, excluding players, are not actual beings. Master Deus and Shikiro are not exceptions to this. Recalling his first meeting with Shikiro and the way he walked into the arena, he thought it was clear that he had learned a lot from the moment he met him and was able to grow. Sitting in front of the crumbling Shikiro, he thought, although this time was short-lived, he would treasure the moments he spent with him. Holding the books close to him, Tsung thought that he still doesn't know what he bets on him, but he will never disappoint him. The cracked sword glistened with light. The system reported that the main character received a new message. A ship and an airship were hovering in the sky. Gosrin greeted him and asked how he was doing. She said that she was writing to him because she had a question. She asked if he was also participating in the event hosted by the Morekian Empire this time. She said that, for some reason, she had a feeling that the Sieg she knew would also participate. Hamji asked if he had contacted a girl from the last time. He exclaimed that her longing for him was clearly evident in her tone. Sitting on his shoulder, he said that, come to think of it, her name was Gosrin. He asked if she was really going to confess her feelings. The main character said that they had not seen each other for a long time. He asked if she was still in Sohoka ruins. Looking to the side, he said about the event held by the Morekian Empire. Looking at the ad, he said that she must be talking about survival battle. The ad says, survival battle, only the strongest will be the last survivor. Prize, all territories of the protein region. Upon death, all abilities will disappear, and the transcendental runes are sealed for a decade. Survival battle is an event that has recently become a hot issue in BNW. It is a survival game held by the Morekian Empire, the most powerful empire on the Nurburg continent. Only players from another world can participate, fighting and surviving on the fiery island located at the center of the White Archipelago, until only one man is standing. It is truly a survival game where only the strongest survive. The winner will receive a huge reward and will become the first adventurer to be a monarch of a nation. However, what made this controversial tournament was the penalty for elimination. It is said that if you die during the survival game, all your abilities will be reset and your transcendental runes will be sealed for a decade. The sealing of transcendental runes essentially renders leveling up impossible. Thanks to this, there is a lot of debate in BNW's community about this elimination penalty. T-Sung thought that Hive wouldn't hold such a crazy event, and it must be the Emperor's doing. Hamji asked if he would participate in the event. The main character said, of course not. He asked who knows how many of the 10,000 participants are stronger than him. He said that if he failed, he would have to live on level 1 for the next 10 years. Looking at the dialogue box, he thought that Gosrin must have sent this as a warning against taking part. On the dialogue box was a message from Gosrin saying that she hopes he won't participate. Smiling, T-Sung decided to just let them handle the tournament and fights themselves because he had more important things to do. On the dialogue box was a completed treasure map, Shakiro's Legacy Volume 1, Island, Shakiro's Legacy Volume 2, Mansion. Wow. Hamji exclaimed that this is a treasure map. He asked if they would really go looking for the treasure. The main character said that he would first check if it's somewhere he can reach with his current level before deciding to go. There was a red cross marked on the map, and he said that since only he knew the location, there was no hurry. He came to a ship that was heading to the southern seas. Looking at the rusty ship with torn sails, he asked if this was really it. Hamji asked if it could even set sail. T-Sung said, this seems tough right from the start. Hive Headquarters, USA. A bright, tall building with the company logo towered over the city. Someone sighed and watched as the players discussed the event. A girl with dark hair said that this event is not held by them, and it seems that it all comes down to conspiracy theories and bashing the company. Oppenheimer looked at the documents. Turning around, the girl asked why don't he explain it instead of just making a fuss. She asked if he knew that their company's stock was going crazy right now. Oppenheimer said he has said this many times before, but Hive's position remains unchanged. Standing up from behind, he said that the only thing they can interfere with in BNW is technical aspects such as bugs and network connections, and events and stories within the game are strictly the domain of NPCs and players. Cha Hai-mai said that event does not affect the player's account in the Rune of Transcendence system. Oppenheimer, looking out the window, said that he could not do anything about it, because what happens in that world can only be resolved within that world. He said that, as always, they just need to trust them and provide the right environment. Closing her eyes, Hai-mai said that 3 years have passed since she joined this company, but she still doesn't know much about this game. She said this is not the first time this has happened. Oppenheimer smiled and said, that's what makes it fun. And neither he nor the chairman know what stories will happen in the future. He added, especially since we don't know their creed. The main character and Hamji sailed on the ship with a smile, looking enthusiastically into the distance.